Hello, and welcome to episode 228 of Flix and a Six. Maybe we're back, maybe we're not.
Maybe go fuck yourself.
One of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo, with me forever and always. The man, the myth, the guard of the veil, Alessandro Biolsi. Say hello, Al.
Flix and a Six is officially consumed in 50 of the 195-ish countries as recognized by the United Nations. And that's according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, so please don't yell at me. That's 25% of the countries in the world. Now, if you're listening to this, and you know a single person in a country that's not the one you're currently in, and you share the show with them, there is a statistically plausible, though unlikely, chance that by next week, we're listened to in half the countries in the world.
Oh! Let's make it happen. Also, thanks.
Yes.
Thanks,
thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing, because I'm assuming it's not 100% by accident that we hit that many countries.
Yeah.
You sent me that the other day, and I was like, I have to find a way to work this into the show. It's going to have to be a part of the opening, and I thought about it, and I was like, that's like a quarter of the countries in the world, right? I was like, I think it's somewhere around 200. I looked up, so it's 190. I think it's 193 officially countries that are part of the UN, and there's like the Vatican and there was one other one that are like recognized as having governments, but they're not like actually officially countries in that way. And there's a handful of other places that are disputed governments and all that sort of stuff too. But it's about 200.
Sure. Well, I think it's safe to say we're on our way. To where, not quite sure, but we're on our way. We're on the road.
We're definitely going somewhere.
We're on the road. We're taking the approach of when everything else is gone, we'll still be here. Whether through hiatus after hiatus, we will return and we will persist.
I think this is where we're supposed to yell pirate radio, but instead I'm just going to say pirate podcast.
Pirate podcast.
Ahoy? Maybe
I would like to. You know what? Okay. Even if it's like bots and stuff, which I'm sure that is at play here, to some degree.
They can listen. They're allowed.
I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I'm also like I don't understand why. I don't understand. We do zero. No. I'm not even that part of it. We do zero like marketing type things. We don't like advertise the show. We don't even social post.
Not anymore.
Every once in a while, some episode will spike 300 downloads, like 300 plus downloads, like out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what's going on?
If you've listened to the show for a long time, we're not going to name it. We're not going to talk about it right now. But if you listen for a while, you will remember that we mentioned that there was one particular episode that became very popular internationally.
And that was it. Then we were off to the races.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Maybe I'm wondering if there's like some sort of, maybe the hiatus does as well. Maybe every time we come back, there's some sort of algorithmic thing that's like a show that you listen to has returned or some, like after some time has elapsed.
I mean, obviously we all know about like the algorithms push a certain amount of things. Mm-hmm. Actually, I know for this one thing actually specifically, I have heard that having hiatuses are actually really bad for the algorithm. Like The more regular you are, the more likely algorithms are to push you.
What if it turns out that we're unintentionally regular by having the same type of hiatus every year?
Hiati? But I do know, well, yes, certainly, especially some of these platforms have gotten their own like internal content. Like Spotify has their we'll put pretty much any podcast can be distributed on Spotify, but they have their own. Spotify specifically has deals with specific podcasts, and those are obviously going to get pushed in the algorithm even more than the others. But within genres, if you click on movies, we're in there somewhere. We're probably not that high up in the list, but I do know that at least in the past it used to be, and I'm assuming to some extent, whatever small piece of the pie this is, it's still the case. Some of these algorithms literally will take random samplings and just push, like, just do some churn to see what will come of it. I think there is built into some of this, like, there's just this kind of churn of, there's this weird subsection of things, like, you listen to this and this and this. You listen to this one indie movie, or this one indie podcast, and you've listened to a movie podcast. here's an indie movie podcast. And it's like, it's not going to be
I
number
see you
one.
have an Untapped account.
Yeah, we're not going to be at the top of that list, but we're going to be like 15th down. And if you just scroll through it, like, let me click on that. What's that? Ooh, they did this movie. That's cool.
Yeah, that's true. That could be that could be a thing. There's also I just think it's great. I'm going to move on from it, but I'm going to say now, early in the show, instead of at the very end. I'll say it at the very end too. If you have a movie for us to review or nuggets for us to discuss, you can send those requests to flixandthesix@thespintune.com. We are any languge. And I'll get it translated. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. So just send us your request. I'm going to say it now. The next request that we get,
we're doing it.
That hasn't been something that we've done already.
Fair.
We will do it.
Now, is it going to jump the queue or going to get added to the queue?
I think if it's easily accessible to us both, we should make it jump the queue. Okay. Give the people what they want.
Guys.
Give the person what they want.
Gals, bots, all of you.
Mike.
Hey, Mike. You will not believe how organized we've gotten since we made this commitment 3 episodes ago to get back to being as regular as possible with within the confines. 2 of the 3 recordings we started have been well in excess of 9 p.m. And
facts.
I organized my notes. I went into my Google Drive and I organized my copious amount of notes. I cleaned up the Trello thing. I built out. We came up with a queue of movies. We haven't done that in forever. At best, we've always had this is the episode this week. This is the episode next week. I can tell you how many recordings we've ended saying, we'll come up with something in a day or two. And sometimes we don't. And sometimes we're scrambling 2 days before record. Neither of us has watched a movie yet. Or let's pick a movie we watched a million times and maybe we'll skim through it real quick and we'll talk about it. We have a list right now of 4 movies in order. Some of them even with specific things for instance, teaser, a couple episodes from now, we're going to do Deadpool and Wolverine because it's going to be hitting streaming at a certain date.
Finally.
And Anthony will be able to see it. And then we're going to do it. We're going to have our first guest since the hiatuses have ended. It's going to be great.
We're on it. We are. Al. Oh, I didn't even say what we're doing. We're so on it. That was perfect. They could not have gone better.
Yeah. Exactly.
On this week's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about Thunderbolts, The Mole, other random 50
musings.
Country statistics. All before diving into our flick of the week, Civil War. But first, Al, what are we drinking?
We're drinking Kane Brewing Company's Overhead Imperial India Pale Ale. It's 16 fluid ounces, which means it's 1 pint, which we love. It's 8.2% alcohol by volume. And
we love those pints.
That's all I have to say.
I don't know the name, the naming convention of their whole line, but I do know that was it Head High IPAs, they're pretty common one that's almost always available on tap at a restaurant in New Jersey.
This is from somewhere in the general vicinity of you. It's
Ocean,
this
is
New
all
Jersey.
over by us. Yeah. Ocean's not far at all. We drive there for coffee sometimes because there's a delicious coffee place over there.
Oh, nice.
But the Head High is great. It's a nice when you see the list, the draft list, and you're looking for something local, and it's a whole bunch of garbage beers plus a couple local things.
Mm-hmm.
Head High is a pretty safe bet.
I don't believe I've had this one. I don't know if I've had Head High.
Yeah.
I know I've had Kane Brewing because I know this logo. I know I've seen it. I know I've had it at least once somewhere.
I feel like just by being in my general vicinity at some point, you've probably gotten one either at my house or because I've had it numerous times, at barbecues and stuff. But I was just curious. I wonder if this is just the Imperial version of that beer.
They both have head in the title, so it's
possible. But I also don't, I was saying, I don't know if that's a consistent thing in their naming. So
now,
anyway.
I remarked last week at Chigmeister's beer that it was pretty new when I bought it. It was a few weeks old. This one, even newer, because I look at the bottom of the can here. It says canned on
April
04/04/24.
Double Aprils.
I bought this 2 weeks after that.
Nice.
So
fresh to
it was pretty damn fresh when I bought it.
Yeah.
And I found it all the way up in northwest New Jersey in the middle of nowhere. So, all over the state.
Love it.
I'm excited to try it. Are you ready to try it?
I'm ready to try it. I'm liking this. I'm liking these green waves.
Yeah, I dig it. Oh yeah, we'll do some can talk before
little can talk.
It's perfect. Ocean, New Jersey. It looks like when
the hoppy wave.
When that area, right? When that area of the Atlantic, Long Island, New Jersey, all that jazz. When it's sunny, and like not stormy, and it's clear-ish. The water's clear-ish. It's going to be too turmoil to be crystal clear.
Yeah.
But it'll look a little bit like this, right? That water almost looks blue-green. Sometimes it looks pretty damn green, even though you can see into it and all.
Yeah, yeah. That's that sand that we got over here that kicks up into it and makes it nasty looking. But
I dig this. I dig the shades of green. Green's always been my favorite color. I've always gravitated towards green.
Sometimes with these cans, I just feel like Tom Haverford. I'm like, I just love the shapes. The square on the triangle.
I gotta be honest though. This to the right of the overhead, this band of green that's like outside of the waves. It's like just like border. Yeah, I really dig that green. It's very similar. Very similar to like classic Jets green color, and there's probably a part of the reason why that association. But I mean, my dad was a Jets fan, that's why I was a Jets fan. That's probably why I was such a fan of green. That was because the Jets were green. That'd be my guess.
Sure. Those are the Emerald City, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Ooh,
that was a fun.
Hang on.
Oh,
there it is.
Oh, nice. Do that again. Can you do that again? That was nice.
Hopefully I don't spill it.
Ooh. What did you click that against?
I flicked it with the nail.
Interesting. Can I do that?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Not bad.
I'm trying to waft it. After Anthony was sick last week, I'm getting over my allergies or some random mini virus. I don't know. I smell the hops through whatever's going on in my nose.
This is a delight.
You gave last week 4 thuckles, and I was slightly resistant. Loved it.
Yeah.
Felt solid 3. This is a 4.
This is a 4 thuckle.
It's 4 thuckles.
No argument here. This is 4. This is.
It's only downhill from here. These last 2 weeks of beers.
Everything else is actually just brine. It's not.
More on that later.
Brine shadowing. This is so juicy. So like, let's stick with juicy. But then the I don't want to downplay like the juiciness, but juicy as it should be, not like all the cans that say that it's a juicy beer and it's just not. This is like juice, like delicious, sweet, texturally juice, but then the wonderful bitterness in there. It's just so perfectly balanced.
This is not a New England IPA, but it has some of that. Yeah, the mouthfeel, the creaminess of whatever they use in the grain. There's probably some oat in there that does this. Would be my assumption on the grain bill. There wasn't any information, so I can't verify that. But not an overwhelming amount. But there's probably a little bit that gives it that sort of texture, which can call to mind what that juiciness is with the New England IPAs that have that fruity taste. But this is much more restrained in the fruity. I feel like there's some residual hint of melon stone fruit type of thing going on in there.
But cantaloupe?
Very
cantaloupe in there?
Like a cantaloupe. But not super forward the way you got to almost dig through the weeds to find it. I'm struggling with
recipe from Liz.
I'm struggling with the hoppage because my nose is not working at full capacity right now. But it does smell good.
It smells great. It's when the can cracked, it was actually intense to the point where I was like, oh, this is going to be like floral. But it's it's really, really well. But this is I'm gonna have to go out and get some.
The thing is, I mentioned 8.2%. The maelstrom of flavor and aroma and mouthfeel, it masks that alcohol. You got to kind of search around on your palate. You got to search around your palate to find it. If you didn't know, you wouldn't maybe necessarily recognize it.
I agree. It almost you mentioned the oaty, the oat texture that you get from having oats, an oated beer, but it almost kind of reminds me also of, and I guess it's similar mouthfeels I feel like that you get from both, but when there's lactose in the beer, it's like that, but it doesn't have the overly stickiness at the end that I feel like you get from that. So maybe that is another argument for its or another clue that it's probably oat.
Yeah.
But very nice. Very Kane.
This is a strong.
Get out of here. This is great. This is a big fan.
It's been a while since we had a unanimous Thuck beer. I think we've had a pretty good run, like from solid to very good beers. Like we haven't had a beer we disliked in a while.
If only I could have 2 of these filling my 32-ounce Stein with a robot on
that I didn't tell you that I bought, that I absolutely bought.
Wait, you did get it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, yeah.
I got it on Saturday.
Score. All right. I'm excited. This is fantastic.
I was gonna keep it as a surprise until I saw you this week.
Well, surprise room.
Well, you brought it up, so I mentioned it.
It's like, oh, you actually remembered something for once. That's what you're like.
No, that's not what I texted you like a week and a half about it. A week and a half ago.
And in your defense, there's a good chance I would have forgotten about it already.
No, I just figured I was literally going to send you a picture of it when I got home, and then I was like, you know what? This would be a fun surprise.
The hard drive's full. One of my RAM sticks is failing me. We're gonna be all right.
We're gonna be okay. Actually, it'll be perfect. You could break out the Stein at Oktoberfest in a few weeks too.
Liechtenstein?
No. The thing is, I could have put 32 ounces into my Stein because I have another one in reserve here that I'm going to be drinking some point later in the show. So
nice. This is. I gotta pace myself because I'm going to get through this way too fast. I'm not going to actually be enjoying it because I'm going to be drinking too fast. I want to try to savor it. Right. By the time I get through the next headline, I'm going to be done with it. Let's get into some news and nuggets.
Okay.
Starting with Thunderbolts asterisk.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was an asterisk.
What is that?
Wasn't there?
What are you doing with that?
I don't know. I was expecting them to do or say something about that. I'm not entirely sure. They didn't really mention what or why they were being named that, but I assume it has to do with Thunderbolt Ross, right? Isn't that that doesn't that name like evoke? Doesn't the Thunderbolts group evoke the name specifically Thunderbolt Ross?
Sure.
Who is going to be in the new Captain America movie?
Yeah,
with a new actor.
I don't really know. Like we're so far removed from like the stuff that I even tangentially know in the Marvel universe that like I'm just kind of along for the ride right now.
I mean, I have seen most of the movies. I think I didn't see the Marvels.
No, I mean like overall Marvel. Like we've been pretty deep in territory that I'm not familiar with for a while. But yeah, so we'll see. I
mean, I just assume like that's a very specific word. A very specific character has that as their nickname, so I just always assumed. Sure. But he wasn't in the trailer, which makes some sense because they probably want to leave in reserve because he's going to feature pretty heavily in this Captain America movie. I actually forget which one's coming out first, but I think they're coming out back to back, right?
I think so. I vaguely remember. Actually, didn't this say January? Well, I mean, we do have crazy times that we live in.
I didn't expect to go to that.
There's a computer right in front of me.
That's true.
I'm gonna check Thunderbolts release date.
I'm definitely not an expert on like these like offshoot and like tertiary groups within Marvel. Like, I know the Avengers. I know of the Illuminati. Obviously, was in the Doctor Strange movie. And then there's all these other, there's the Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's the Thunderbolts, and there's other ones as well, like that I just don't know. And then there's the X-Men, obviously. That's its own thing. But
okay, Captain America is February 14th.
Okay.
And then Thunderbolts is May 2nd.
Okay.
Back to back enough.
Yeah, no, I mean that when they're doing it 3 months, there are 3 movies a year, right? Like that would be the type of thing we would see, like an April, July, and a November or whatever is what they would do, right? So
right. I want to know, why is there an asterisk in Thunderbolts?
It's probably an answer out there somewhere.
Let's see what the robots can cook up for me. It's my way of doing things now. It's so funny. Google search results have become such trash that actual like generative responses tend to be more useful.
They are now, but I remember a few months ago when they were consistently putting out things that were just wildly wrong.
Yeah. The one that I use a browser called Arc.
Never heard of it.
And it has like a built-in browse for me. Like you'll type a question, you hit browse for me, and you can toggle it between the Google search results and like what it pulls together. And it pulls together a very nice, clean, easy to digest like page that it builds on the fly based off of like results, and it tells you the sources of each thing that it pulls from, which is actually very helpful, like to kind of vet or like go deeper on something.
Yeah, Google's useless since they went full blown like pay to play. It's useless. Like,
well, let's. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop saying that this thing is really good. Symbolism. The asterisk in the title, Marvel's Thunderbolts, is used to denote further information that is not immediately visible.
Yeah, AI is still pretty useless.
That's fair. I mean, you're not wrong. Shame on me, right?
It was a worthwhile attempt.
Revealed when the movie is released later in 25. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's just so. It's like pay attention to it. It's going to mean something. Some fans speculate that asterisk indicates a connection to the Dark Avengers, a team of reformed villains in the comics. What is this? This is like Marvel Suicide Squad, right? Is that kind of like what we're...
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. But it sounds like more like they were driven together by convenience more so than with like that specific of a... I mean, I'm sure we'll have...
And certainly better writing.
I mean, one can only hope.
Well, and here's...
the second one was good. The one that Gunn did was good.
Yeah, I didn't get through it.
Really? I like it.
Yeah. I just don't think I was in the space for it. I'm just like I was just like I would rather have seen something with like still not in that universe.
I mean, it was barely in that universe. Yeah. I had zero interest in it, and at first, actually, I didn't even process that Gunn was doing it, and then like I remembered, oh yeah, that's right. That's what he came back. That's what he went to do, and then that's when he came back to do Guardians 3. And then between like those two coming out was when it was announced he would be like co-running the DC stuff,
right?
Because they liked how that movie came out and the response to it so much, and the response was so strong. I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Like I watched it at home. I didn't watch it at the theater.
Sure.
And I ended up being pleasantly surprised. I did like it.
Okay. I'll give it. I will at some point actually watch it. I haven't gotten back to it. I think I just like wasn't in the place to watch it when I turned it on, and I never got through it. But Thunderbolts trailer. I don't want to get excited about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what the MCU has been doing thus far.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't say that in the past. In the post Infinity Saga era. With like a few exceptions that prove the point. The trailer is well cut, I think. Mm-hmm. It has me intrigued as to what's going on. The characters seem like they have good chemistry, but there's some heavy hitters in there.
Yeah.
So that's a plus.
Also, you're building in a certain amount of like chemistry that already existed, right? Like where like two of these characters already had a movie where they were heavily part of this ensemble. Another two characters already shared, whether they were heavily part of an ensemble and had chemistry. Two of them already shared screen time substantially in this not Captain America show. With the Falcon and
the Winter Soldier.
And the Winter Soldier show. That's what it's called.
The Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. Actual working title. Who's doing this one? Who's directing this?
Did they even say in the trailer? I have no memory of that.
Jake Schreier. What have you done, Jake Schreier?
That doesn't sound familiar to me.
You've done
nothing.
Maybe that wouldn't be.
No, I can't imagine.
We've got a couple. It says directed 6 episodes of Beef.
People really liked that show.
I watched that show.
I didn't see it.
It was decent. It went on too long.
Really? Because it was. Yeah, I thought it was like a limited series.
It was
miniseries. Whatever.
The story didn't have enough to fill that space.
That was Stephen Yeun and
yes,
someone else.
Yes. What's her name? Hang on, it's gonna come to me. Ali Wong.
Oh, okay.
It was a kind of a bonkers premise, and it just goes like way off the rails, like in an insane way.
Was like there was like a road rage incident, right, or something like that.
Yeah,
like the two of them end up like as frenemies, kind of, or something.
Yeah, they basically feud for like and like keep like one upping like what they do to the other person. until it gets well out of hand.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he directed 6 episodes of that. But he looks familiar? I don't know if he's not the creator of that show?
I didn't look him up at all. I was just letting you read it since you got there first.
The creator was not him. Obviously, it was Lee Sung-jin. Yeah. Okay, so he directed a few episodes. Anyway, what I was curious about though was this trailer. What was the other trailer? That was it. The second. It was the second Captain America trailer. There was one recently where I was like, we spoke about it. I was like, oh, is this like, is it coming? Is Marvel coming back? Was it? I don't remember.
It might have been that one.
But it's just like, it had something. It's almost like it feels like it's getting back to or at least these trailers are getting back to like the groundedness of like let's call it the Russoverse. Mm-hmm. Because that's where
they are coming back.
They are coming back, right? So I'm wondering if there's something there, right? Like, is their influence like actively like getting on these movies and correct like writing? It's like let's call Captain Marvel back from space. Like, yes, other things need assistance, but we need to fix this, and they call them back and they fix it. Because if we get them correcting the course leading into a bonkers Avengers movie.
So I like the idea of if they wanted to like bucket subsections of the MCU and give some version of a house style to each of them.
Sure.
So like the really grounded ones like this, right? These are all humans on Earth. These movies should have that Russo patina to them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then like, I would like the more outer space type of things should have the more Gun Waititi like aesthetic to them.
Yeah.
Like doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of like like you kind of create these pockets and like that gives you a little there's a little bit more levity in those because they could be a little bit more fantastical and they do that. Whereas like,
but also like even like the visual aesthetic and the visual language,
no, totally,
how like that color scheme and that sort of thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I agree with that. But then I do think that, but the reason why I'm so on board with like the Russo house style for the Earth based things is that the Marvel universe is so outrageous at this point, and there's so many ridiculous things, and like, you need some sort of like twisty intrigue and human drama element, like well executed, to make any story work on this planet anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And they do it well. They do it really well. They execute it really well.
I also think there is something to be said for, with these types of stories, make them smaller. You can't always keep getting bigger, right? Like the bubble has burst.
You're right.
We needed time to reset from that, and they sometimes have, sometimes haven't. But when we're having these movies, a quote-unquote smaller movie with quote-unquote smaller characters, make it smaller stakes. Make us care about the characters, right?
Yeah. And get back to, like, you don't have to, like, to echo what you're saying, you don't need to introduce the next Thanos with each of the entries in the movies, but what you could do is knock over the first domino.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, it doesn't have to.
That's what they were doing in the first, like, well, really more the second phase, I guess, than the first phase, right?
Yeah.
First phase was much more concerned with origins, obviously.
Sure.
But the second phase was, how are all of these threads going to eventually, even though this movie exists on its own, you can see how this is ultimately somewhere down the line going to connect, right?
Right.
They didn't, like Iron Man 2, the actual stakes of the movie were not that high. It was a pretty personal story. It was a very Tony-centric story.
Yeah. That's true. But what they did, like, and in tying all that together, with each of the Iron Man movies, like, focusing on Tony was a great thing to do in building out who he's going to become and how he's ultimately going to, like, impact the main event later on.
Well, you saw the connective tissue of, we're introducing Black Widow and he's taking the next phase of the technology, and it's going to finally give him it's not just an idea of, oh, I'm going to be the hero now, I'm going to grow up and be there. No, he actually started to take steps and to realize why and how he was important, right? He got super nihilistic because he thought he was going to die. Right. And like, he starts taking seriously what it means to be a hero, and more than just to protect his company or to stop someone he set in motion of being evil. Like, there's more to this. Like, I need to become the philanthropist in the billionaire genius philanthropist, right? Like, it was a pretty small story because we're concerning with this one man-child growing up and fighting some random dudes with, like, some shitty robots and, like, laser whips. But
Taser face.
The world wasn't going to end if those guys, if Hammer and the Mickey Rourke character, God knows what his name was.
Whiplash.
Sure. If they won, if Tony dies, like, they don't take over the world. They don't end the universe, right? Mm-hmm. It was a small story.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it was, yeah.
But it still informed a larger piece in a lot of ways.
I will leave. We can move. This is, yeah, I agree with you. We can move off of this, but I want to leave you with one more note on Iron Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
I want my bird. Probably one of my favorite movie lines in history.
That accent was awful, just awful. No, in all seriousness, I mean, if we want to wrap up, like, talking about the trailer,
we got you the bird, man. It's your bird. Here he is, the bird. We got the bird. You wanted the bird. We got the bird. It's not my bird. Board. It's a BOIRD. It's not my board.
I do think that this trailer looked cool. It looked like we are going to get some of that levity of some jokes, but also we're going to have some serious shit. And I don't know. Yeah. I, for what it's worth, each of these characters I've found at least some form of interesting that we've seen on the screen.
Yeah,
I ended up gravitating more towards the Florence Pugh character as that movie, the Black Widow movie, went along. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The Wyatt Russell character, I found him to be interesting in that show.
Yeah, he's interesting, and I hate him, but that's part of the intrigue.
Yeah. What's his name? Who was also in the Black Widow movie? Totally drawing a blank on his name. He was an interesting. I mean, he's meant to be mostly comedic relief, like
David Harbour's character.
Yeah, David Harbour. Yeah. So it'll be cool. It'll be interesting.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to going to a Marvel movie again.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thunderbolts, May 2nd, a little birthday movie. For yours truly. Let's talk about the mole. More importantly, what's this?
I'm glad you asked. So this, which apparently was announced a couple of months ago, and I missed that announcement, but more in earnest because I believe there was some mini teaser that came out. This is the new show by Mike Schur.
Oh. Sure.
Yeah, I thought that would excite you. It's going to star Ted Danson as well as other people who've been in other of Mike Schur's shows, which makes sense. So I think this was initially called A Man on the Inside, but I thought they renamed it The Mole. I forget. I'm seeing different things in different names here. Some version of The Mole or The Man on the Inside is going to be this new show by Mike Schur. It's on Netflix. It's based on the Oscar-nominated documentary The Mole Agent.
Okay.
Which was, I think, that lost to My Octopus Teacher. I remember that one winning an Oscar. I don't remember this one being nominated. I believe this comes out in November. The gist of it is it follows a retired man played by Charles Danson. Or not by Charles Danson, sorry. Named Charles, played by Ted Danson. Who gets a new...
I'm sorry, hang on. I want to pause you because I want to pull up the IMDb list. It's called The Mole?
I thought so, unless I misheard that.
I'm going to look up Ted Danson because I'm not finding anything. I found a reality show from like 22.
Okay. No, so then maybe it's called just A Man on the Inside. I heard it announced as The Mole somewhere, but I found it as A Man on the Inside.
A Man on the Inside is how it is on IMDb.
So that's fine. Okay. So A Man on the Inside. Let's go with that then for now.
Yep.
I don't really care what it's called. We know what we're looking for. Ted Danson show made by Mike Schur.
Got it. I found it. All right, we're good now.
He gets a new lease on life when he answers an ad placed by a private investigator and becomes a mole in a secret investigation of the Pacific View.
Oh my God.
In San Francisco.
Yes.
Joining him is a pedigree list of stars, including several Schur veterans from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The original film, which was nominated for Best Documentary Oscar in 2021, which that year was won by My Octopus Teacher. It takes place in Chile and follows an 83-year-old widower who is hired by a private investigator to infiltrate a nursing home in order to find out if its residents, including the mother of the PI's client, are being mistreated.
I am just sign me up. I'll watch this. This looks like fun.
I do think there's gonna be some dark moments to it, but I think it's going to be like entertaining. So the other main cast is filled out by Mary Elizabeth Ellis, who is the waitress in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Charlie Day's real
the waitress.
Yeah. It's got Stephanie Beatrice, who she's from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right?
She is. Yeah, she's also the lead voice actor in Encanto.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is a name I do not know. Lila Rich Creek Estrada, who is from Chicago Med and Four Dads. Two-time Tony nominee.
What is Four Dads?
I don't know.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
Two-time Tony nominee Stephen McKinley Henderson, which perfect because he's in the movie we're doing tonight. He was in Fences and Dune and an episode or two of The Newsroom, for those of you who remember. We talk about it on the show all the time. Mm-hmm. He also was in Civil War, as I just mentioned. Two-time Emmy Award winner Sally Struthers from All in the Family, Gilmore Girls, and Still Standing. And then a bunch of other people who I do not recognize their names, so I'm not going to bother reading them, although I'm sure some of you out there will know these names. I do not. So there's a lot of names listed on this thing. This was on the Netflix site to dumb. This is kind of their thing to announce it in earnest. This was,
and it's going to be on Netflix.
Yes.
Cool.
So I thought
you all dropped at once. Nice.
Probably. I thought this would interest you.
This is right up my alley.
I still have not gotten around actually to watching The Good Place. I know you love that.
I don't know why I thought you had watched it around when we watched it. That's funny. That is.
Yeah.
Good Place. The Good Place is fun. It has its dips along the way, but overall, it's worth the ride. Especially that first season. It's just, I'm excited for you to watch that.
One of these years I'll get to it. I loved Parks and Rec, so I remember when that show was coming out after Parks and Rec ended, and I was like, oh, it's made by Mike Schur. That's cool. And I just never even watched a single second of it. I don't know why. There's
a scene in that show that I think about like multiple times a week, with Ted Danson, and there's two plus characters having a conversation. It's not a topic of it. It's like, well, I don't remember if it was like political or racist, or it was like a real life scenario where like the people around you are talking about something and you're just like, I don't like, and they kind of throw to him and he just goes, oh, I'm not part of this. And I just I love that as a response. And I've been looking for opportunities to use that in my everyday life.
Nice.
Not part of this. But it's good stuff. Man on the inside. A man on the inside. All right, cool. I'm down. Let's get that going. Anything else for news and nuggets?
Those are the only two news things that I really have in earnest. The only other things I have, I don't even really have that much for consumption. I really have like one main consumption thing.
Okay.
Other than just we're almost there. The news is we're just a couple days from Beer Fest.
We are. That's what we're calling it.
Yeah, why not? Fair enough. The Hudson Valley Craft Beer Fest.
We are. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And you mentioned brine. Mm-hmm. Where are you with the brine? The brining process.
Well, I was doing that tonight before we started recording.
Got it.
So I was trying to start it this week. I wanted to give it a full week. Give it longer, of course, but I want to give it a full week if I could.
Sure.
I don't think it'll be the end of the world to not be a full week. I knew I was going to have to track down two main ingredients I was slightly worried about finding, which is namely the brisket, because
sure,
I didn't know if you could just walk into any supermarket and just find brisket at any time of the year. Two, I needed to find curing salt. Now, have you ever used curing salt?
I think I used it once.
Okay.
I encrusted something with it.
Probably not then, because
no, maybe I'm thinking it's a different type of salt.
Yeah, because
it wasn't like table salt though. It was like it was like very hard and like, but I was able to pack it. I don't remember what it was. I think I did something with fish with it. I don't remember.
Okay. From everything I've been reading, curing salt. First of all, I'm aware of the nitrates thing, but you know what? It's not something you have to have every day or every week in your life. We'll all survive having pastrami this one time. Two, it's kind of toxic, curing salt. You're not supposed to consume it directly.
Okay.
In fact, it specifically says usually
do not do that.
It's referred to as pink curing salt because they dye it pink because they don't want you to confuse it and use it as regular salt to kill anyone.
Not to be confused with Himalayan pink salt.
Yes, because a lot of people do, apparently. You can find so much of that in the stores. It's very easy to find that. There was this whole craze several years ago. I don't know why. It does look cool. I don't think it probably tastes different than other salts.
It does taste different. It's not... I don't particularly like it.
Okay. I know I've had it
Turns out I've just been using curing salt and I'm just slowly poisoning myself.
No, apparently like you will get very sick if you like eat it directly, but it is used specifically and they dye it pink so that you don't accidentally use it as some other salt.
Got it.
It's fine in brine because there's only so much that's actually penetrating the meat itself.
Well, what's the benefit of it though?
Because it kills bacteria.
Oh, okay. So you're able to do a non-refrigerated brine if needed?
I suppose so, although...
or at least some temperature controlled, but not necessarily like... Okay.
The recipe did tell me, please put this in the fridge when you sealed it up. But I suppose technically you could, because that is what they would do like 100 years ago before refrigerators existed. But I was worried I was not going to be able to find those two things. So I looked up online and it said Walmart carries pink curing salt. It's like, that makes sense. Walmart carries like kind of everything. And my dad also said, oh, I've gotten brisket in Walmart before. Like, there's a good chance you'll find it. Great. Recipe I was looking for.
So I rolled down the aisles of Walmart with a brisket, curing salt, a rope, and a shovel.
Yeah, more or less. No, so I was like, okay, let me go find the curing salt. Asked my mom, where is most likely that I would find it? I said, I figured the baking aisle, but in case it's not there, where would you say to look? She goes, oh, there's a section in like the home section or whatever where you will find all sorts of things for like canning and like Tupperware and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll take a look there first. Then I'll head over to the baking aisle, whatever. Was not in the home section. Go to the baking aisle. There are so many salts, so many spices, so many peppers, so many everythings. Could not find it. I saw like 8 different brands of pink Himalayan salt. 0 curing salt. It's like, fantastic. There's no point in buying this brisket unless I'm... and then I was like, you know what? No, never mind. I'll just order it online. I'm here. Let me.
I was going to say, false statement. Worst case scenario, you have brisket.
Sure. But it's nice to have, like to buy the brisket and, like, do the thing I want to do.
Sure.
Like, you know what?
Sure.
I can order it online. I'll get it in a day or 2. It'll be fine. Let me go get the brisket. Now, my recipe called for 5 pounds of brisket, which that's a pretty good, healthy amount of brisket.
Yeah.
But realistically, I'm going to be feeding, like, 5 or 8 people with this. Like, so whatever, 5-ish pounds. They were all like 19 pounds of brisket. There was like 3 briskets. They were all like 18, 19, 20 pounds in Walmart. I was like, that's too much brisket. Like, I'm not going to eat all of that brisket.
Sure. It wasn't, but you could have carved it and frozen some of it.
I could have, but even that, like, I mean, how much whole chunk of brisket am I putting in the fucking freezer, you know?
You have a chest freezer now, don't you?
Not plugged in yet, but I do.
So that's what it's there for.
But, yeah, I think of that more pre-cooked meats, not post-cooked meats. But, I mean, that's fine. I would have been fine. But I had to go to up in this...
Yeah, I would say you could have cut the brisket up ahead of time.
Yeah, it's true, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, but this is... We're off. It's fine. Keep going.
So there's in this area, there's like, I'll say 5 or 6 in the Hudson Valley, mid-Hudson Valley stores. They're called Adams.
Okay.
It's a grocery store. A lot of like the produce and meat and fish and stuff are from local-ish. When I say local-ish, tri-state area farms.
Sure.
So it's like, I have to go over there to get something else. Let me go and see if they have brisket. So they had 2 8-pound briskets. I was like, that's close enough. I can make 8 pounds work.
Sure.
It's still a little too much, but I can make that work. I ordered the stuff. I actually needed to get a couple other things too. I could have gotten one of them at the store, and I just didn't think of it. I needed pickling spice. Totally forgot about that. So I ordered a big thing of pickling spice.
What is pickling spice?
It's got all sorts of things you might expect to find in a jar of pickles.
Oh, okay. It's not like some sort of special thing that I didn't know about. It's an amalgamation of other spices.
It is, but it's like I'm sure there are variations, but they all have like a lot of the same type of themes, right?
Okay.
It's, ordered all the spices that I didn't have. Had my brisket. It was like, it's all supposed to be here on Monday. Let's do it on Monday. Got home pretty late. There's 2 football games on. I was like, do it tomorrow. Got home at 8:45 Tuesday. I was like, I'm not doing this right now. Just not doing it. And it doesn't even require like much labor intensive. It's just time intensive because
not doing it.
You gotta boil like sugar and pickling spice and the curing salt, a couple other things. Just bring it to boil, get it all to condense into the brine. Cool it before you put the meat in because obviously you don't want the hot water to start cooking the meat that's going to be sitting there for a few days. Mm-hmm. It was like if I start this fucking 9:00, like it's not going to be ready to put in like the meat into the fridge until fucking midnight. Like I'm just not doing that. Finally got to it tonight. Like I said, super easy.
It's
boil spices in water.
You have to have the windows of time.
Yeah, get the sugar and salt all to condense into this fucking hot water. Dilute it now with ice cold water, to get the temperature down. Get the, you don't need that level of concentration. You just need to get it all into solution, all that jazz. Get the meat in. I had a
There's a turn of phrase.
Get the meat in? Into the brine. Don't fuck Brian.
Pickled dick.
So I did all of that like 10. Well, I've sealed it up officially with the meat like 10 or 15 minutes before you text me saying you're ready to go.
There's clips. There's just perfect clips.
That you got it sealed in there with the meat. I mean that one not so much. Then put the meat in it. But it is ready to go. It's going to get like 4 days.
28. Flix in his 6. Put the meat in it.
Put the meat in it. Cut to the chase.
Oh my God.
The brisket is brining as we speak and has been doing so for several hours and will be doing so for the next few days. And I'm going to smoke it on Sunday. I would rather give it a full week, but it'll get 4+ days. So
why not go the full? Why not just go the week and a half? Get yourself to the next Sunday.
Because the next Sunday we have a wedding.
Wow.
And the Sunday after that, Dominic will be leaving for 6 months.
And their weddings.
Yeah.
Just get in the way of your brisket.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. Well, it'll probably be fine in like 24 hours. So it's fine.
It'll probably be fine now. It would be better. Like I said, the one that I had, they said they brined it for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's just showing off at that point, though.
It is. And I do plan on giving it, like, I'm going to get it out there smoking at, like, probably 7 a.m. on Sunday.
Sure.
So that, like, it can smoke for several hours, and then I'll probably still have to finish it in the oven because you want to get it up to, like, 200 degrees so it really starts to break down and fall apart.
Yeah. I have on occasion made the Cuban sandwiches from Chef, and each time I've used like a maybe similar cuts of meat of pork, but they're various sizes and whatnot. Right now I've got a nice pork shoulder sitting in my freezer, waiting for the weekend that I'm gonna decide to do this again, because it was just a decent quality hunk of meat on just an absurd sale at Costco. And I was like, well, if I'm like, this is the cheapest way I could feed like 15 people. I'm going to do it. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this and save it for the occasion where I make the sandwiches again.
Definitely need a chest freezer for that.
Yeah. And I do have that though. Yeah. But each time I've made it though, by the time it's done brining, the meat is basically done. Like you could just eat it. Like you'd probably be fine. I'm telling you, man. Like when you get a look at that brisket, like it's very interesting. But my goodness, it's a waiting game.
Yeah.
But the results on a well-brined piece of meat.
Worth it.
Huh. And like we're talking, so like normally I'll brine it for 24 hours and then I will marinate it for 24 hours.
Nice.
And jeez, dude, it's so good.
I know so worth it. You like talked me through it and I was like, Jesus, it's like 47 steps to this. You should send me that recipe. I will
broken up into a couple of days though. Like by the time you're ready to actually do it, it's like you get up in the morning and you cook it and you just slow cook it in the oven. You don't have to do anything crazy to it. I've done it on the grill. It's fine there too, but like it's super easy in the oven.
Again,
and you need it to cool. You need it to cool for the actual preparation.
Again, I feel like I would probably smoke that since we have the cabinet smoker.
You could. I would be worried about the smokiness taking away from like the other nuances of the flavor. So like I ended up using a really nice smoked ham for the ham layer.
Yeah.
And that had like a good amount of like just a little bit of that smokiness flavor like from the ham itself, but not overbearing where like you could really taste the marinade like of the pork. And then I've also like messed around with the various bread options, and my next go around, I'll be making the bread.
Oh, nice.
So
you should definitely send me that recipe.
Yeah, we'll do. I've got it stashed away somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, we've basically been talking consumption, so it's pre-consumption.
Yeah.
So let's actually get into legit consumption. I had a delicious quesadilla for dinner tonight. No, I did, but that's not what we're here for. What I would like to talk about for a moment is I watched the first episode of The Penguin.
Yes, you texted me that.
I very, very, very much enjoyed it. It was dark and twisted and uncomfortable and just like it's just unsettling, but like really well executed. Like you can tell some really good stories in this universe if you've got the balls to do it, and that's what they're doing.
I mean, that Batman movie was certainly the darkest of all of the Batman movies. So. Yeah,
and it was just really well done. And the character, like you're already seeing the depth of the character, like within the first episode, and he's got layers, right? And
much like an ogre.
Much like an ogre, and he's got motivations and like history that like fuels the way that he is, and you can see some of his psychoses and things like that come through within the first like I don't know 15 minutes. It's and it's a performance. Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious, Colin Farrell! This is a performance. Really well done. I'm really looking forward to continuing on. Though I'll spread them out. I mean, luckily they're weekly drops, but I think there was already a second episode, I believe, because I think they dropped the first one like on a Thursday, but it's going to be releasing on Sundays. I think that's how it works.
Oh, is that what they're doing? Okay.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 out right now, and
it's only like 5 episodes.
I don't remember how many. It's a limited series, and I do think that will serve it really well.
Yeah.
Don't overstay your welcome. Tell your story. Whatever many episodes we've said it for years. However many episodes it takes to tell the story, and however long each of those episodes has to be, does not need to fit some sort of specific schedule.
Not if it's going to be streaming. And HBO, it might as well. They've always kept to their own convention, right?
Yeah,
they're not bound by like the laws of broadcast television. Like they can do anything for as long or short as they want to do. So,
we're gonna call it The Good Sopranos.
I was going to ask that because I was listening to a podcast today and they were talking about The Penguin, and they basically said, so we're doing The Sopranos again. It wasn't actually a criticism. It was just an observation.
But think about that, though. Think about the years of methods and experiments of television and movies coming back to like an origin point of like where like and like getting a second try, but then also somehow marrying that well with a licensed property. Like I'm impressed.
Okay,
like it's I think there are a couple of performances that maybe are a little bit, they're fine. Mm-hmm. But he more than makes up for it.
This is meant to be before the Batman, right? Like this is how he becomes the Penguin or whatever.
No, at least not the first episode. This is after.
Oh, okay. Because from what I was hearing in this thing today, it was it sounded like they were saying it was a prequel, but
I think that they already did a flashback. I think that they'll probably, I don't know if maybe whole episodes will be that way, but the first episode very much takes place after the events of the Batman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of, you know what though? I think they're doing something interesting where I wouldn't be surprised if they go full flashback for like multiple episodes. This is very much leading, like there's already been comments in the first episode, like it's leading up. It's like it's doing some table setting for the next Batman movie.
You think this is like an interstitial?
Yeah, and it's but to the point where like they're hints at things that might become something, but I don't know that it's like I don't know how deep they're going to go into that, or like how like I don't think they're going to make it in such a way where you had to see this to really get the full effect of the next movie. Whereas like if you did watch it, you'll just, you know, how it should be. You get a little extra. Oh, like it's that thing, you know.
I'm curious because we know they're doing one.
Mm-hmm.
We've even heard some stuff about like when it's supposed to come out, but I don't think they've even talked about like casting or what the plot for the next one will be, right?
Well, I know there's like all sorts of like rumor stuff too, so I don't know how much of this is legit or not, but I do know there was inklings of the Scarecrow again, and that actually maps well to like what I'm talking about. Like there's this new thing that's going to be like far better than, you know, it's the new game in town.
Yeah.
Nobody knows about it. I could see that being the serum that like the Scarecrow uses. So,
well, I was just curious because I would assume you do this show.
My compound will take you places.
I assumed that the point of doing this show, especially if it exists as like an interstitial, would be for him to come back in whatever role in the next movie. And I would assume Zoe Kravitz comes back. I would assume, totally drawing a blank on Commissioner Gordon's name right now. Jeffrey
Wright?
Right, that's it. I assume, you know, he's back, obviously. Yeah. But I haven't heard any of that. And I was just thinking that as you were finishing up the last point you were making before. And I remembered Zoe Kravitz just directed a movie.
Yeah.
She directed, is a horror movie, I think, right? Or a thriller or something like that. But
yeah.
I remember seeing a trailer for something maybe 6 weeks ago or something like that. And at the end of it, it's like...
Blinked twice?
Yes. It was like directed by Zoe Kravitz. I was like, really?
Yeah, that's cool. I love seeing... I love when a good actor takes a turn at this type of thing, at directing, because I like to see like all... Because like, I think she's fantastic. And like in this things that I've seen her, but like when you, so we're talking about somebody that has pulled off a handful of really strong, successful performances. Mm-hmm. So like what you can, I'm always so curious to see like what they can bring to the table as far as like, you know, directing a vision, instilling some of maybe their practices and principles in the performers around them that they're guiding. I just think that it's a really cool thing, and I'd actually love to kind of study that more. Like get some like maybe like intentionally watch some early movies of folks that have turned director and like see if I could spot the influence of like their performance in the other performers of the movies that they're directing. I feel like that would be a really fun thing to try to investigate.
Well, I know like a bunch of people have done this, right? Gone from acting to directing, but like kind of, I feel like kind of the most noteworthy of like the recent era would be like Clooney, right? Where he kind of almost stopped acting other than to maybe be bit roles in his own movies, and he was just directing a bunch of movies. And I was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting... Which also brings to mind, I was thinking about this the other day with someone else. I forget who it was now. Whereas like, yeah, there's like those people, and I feel like specifically when it comes to actors and actresses, where it's like, oh, that person. It's like super famous person. Like very aware of this person. Someone, oh yeah, that, whatever. And then you think about it, it's like, have I even ever seen that person in anything?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I'm having that with George Clooney right now as I'm thinking about it. It's like, he's a super famous actor, has been a super famous actor my entire life. Like, he's becoming George Clooney and, like, being a superstar on ER, like, is around the time I was, like, 2 years old. Yeah. And I've only kind of seen him in a couple of things and nothing in, like, a long time. Like, sure. I've only seen Batman and Robin like one time, and like that's like the worst, one of the worst movies like ever. And he like apologizes for it.
Yep.
And he's in like 6 minutes of Gravity.
Right. The executive decision in that movie.
And I like just saw Burn After Reading, and I fell asleep on Michael Clayton. I've been meaning to get back to watching that movie for like 15 years. And
sorry, you said Michael Clayton, and the only thing that sticks in my mind is you've seen Saving Silverman, right?
I have.
Hi, Clayton. The two,
his new friends,
he was our friend first. Eat shit, fake Wayne.
But I realized, it's like, oh, George Clooney, instantly recognizable, super recognizable face, name, super famous. George, oh, come on, you know George Clooney. Everyone knows George Clooney.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would just...
He's Mickey Mouse famous. You see him, you know him. He's just George Clooney.
Yeah, but I realized I haven't really engaged with George Clooney very much.
You're like, huh, turns out a lot of people telling me George Clooney, very famous.
Yes. It's like one of those
I'm familiar with that.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like George Clooney begets more knowledge of George Clooney. But like I haven't actually watched him in very much stuff.
Yeah.
Like I saw The Eyes of March, which I want to say, did he direct that?
I don't know.
Barely is in the movie. And I remember when that movie came out, and I remember the trailer, it seemed like it was a Ryan Gosling and George Clooney movie. It's a Ryan Gosling movie that happens to have George Clooney in it.
He did direct that.
Yeah. And that's what I was getting at. Like, he directed a bunch of movies that...
All right, hang on. I'm pulling up... I'm pulling up GC's IMDb. Give me a second. We got...
I know this is a super random rabbit hole.
This is a great rabbit hole. I'm all for it. We've got time for it. Actor, producer, director. Okay. Do you want to start with acting or directing?
Let's start with directing, because I know I will know a lot of these, but I certainly will not all of them.
The Boys in the Boat.
That just came out. Yeah. I forgot he directed it, but I did know that.
The Tender Bar.
That's the Ben Affleck movie?
I think so, which I really wanted to see.
Had zero interest in seeing.
Yes, that is. I did want to see that. The Midnight Sky.
That doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
Catch-22 TV miniseries. Okay. 2 episodes. Suburbicon.
That starred him, I believe.
Okay, so
I remember that coming out. I heard that was an awful movie. I heard that it the script was incoherent. It was how did this get filmed? It doesn't make any sense. That's what I remember hearing about that movie. Didn't see it. I do remember the trailer. I remember it coming out.
The Monuments Men.
That starred him. That was an ensemble. I want to say it was him and John Goodman.
I think so. I feel it was
World War II. They were preserving
Matt Damon. They have a Matt Damon floating around.
Maybe.
Yeah, they did, and Oscar Isaac.
I didn't know
Julianne Moore.
That was it World War II. They're trying to preserve famous
an unlikely World War II platoon is tasked with rescuing art pieces from Germany. I think I might have watched this.
I never saw it, but I remember it coming out.
The Ides of March.
The aforementioned
Leatherheads.
Oh yeah, he was in that. I don't know how big of a role he was in it, but he was definitely front and center of the trailer. I remember that coming out. Didn't see it. Good Night and Good Luck. Another political movie. Interesting. He's done a lot of political shit, so okay.
Unscripted TV series, 5 episodes, and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. That's it. That's the list of.
I didn't know he directed that. Okay,
that's the directing set.
So I pretty much knew all of those, like I said. I didn't realize actually that he did Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, though. Okay, and this is upcoming Untitled Confessions of a Dangerous Mind project. I don't know if that's a sequel or documentary or something, but. Let's move over to actor, though, because I'm curious about this. So we've got, Wolf's If Nespresso Compostable. It's a short. He's done a lot of Nespresso commercials.
The Flash.
Yeah.
Brief. Ticket to Paradise, The Midnight Sky, Catch-22, Money Monster, Hail Caesar.
I remember a trailer coming out from Money Monster.
Okay, Hail Caesar.
Hail Caesar was a huge ensemble movie, though.
It was, but I do think that that's where some of this comes from. Is him being in Coen Brothers movies, because he wasn't a Brother Where Art Thou, another one that he's in with them,
and Burn After Reading.
So there's something there.
He did a bunch of Coen movies.
Yeah. Let's see. Tomorrowland, Gravity, 8, The Descendants. I remember that. Was that up for some awards? That I feel like that was decent.
That one was the first one I can remember in modern culture where the argument really started to take hold about stop casting white actors and actresses to play non-white people.
Maybe I'm not thinking of the same movie.
No, that's the movie. Jennifer Lawrence?
No. I know what you're talking about.
I could have swore it was that movie. Cameron Crowe directed it, right?
This is Alexander Payne. This movie is a land baron tries to reconnect with his two daughters after his wife is seriously injured in a boating accident.
I could have swore it was that
Shailene
movie.
Woodley is in it, I think.
Oh, okay, no.
This is a good movie.
Is it? I could have swore this was the movie, but maybe I was wrong.
I feel like you're thinking of that movie where Emma Stone plays a Hawaiian person.
Oh, is that what I was thinking? I said Jennifer Lawrence, but you're right. I meant Emma Stone. But I thought that was this movie.
That's not this movie. I know what you're talking about.
Super weird.
What is that movie called?
I don't know. I thought it was The Descendants.
All right, we're gonna take a George Clooney detour real quick and go to Emma Stone.
No, you keep doing that. I'm gonna do the.
Okay, perfect.
I could have swore that was this movie. Holy shit!
I think you're just the reason why
because they're in Hawaii.
They're in Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah, because I clicked on it and I was like, "Are you sure it's not this movie?" Because they're in Hawaii.
The American, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Men Who Stare at Goats, Up in the Air, ER, Burn After Reading, Leatherface.
I remember the Men Who Stare at Goats was kind of a thing, right?
I can't remember if I either saw. No.
Wow.
I either saw The Men Who Stare at Goats or The Monuments Men. I saw one of those two movies.
The movie that I was thinking of was Aloha, which is even more Hawaiian than that.
How so specific. That's definitely it. I love how you remembered.
They came
me too. That The Descendants is the Hawaiian movie.
Well, because
surely that's the one where they whitewashed Hawaiian.
They came out a year apart. Like they came out at the same time too.
Yeah.
Like, but it's funny because I clicked on Emma Stone and I scrolled down on IMDb and the photos thing, and it was the top photo. It was her flying a helicopter, I think, or in a helicopter, and I was like, nope, this is the one.
This is it. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm seeing a bunch of stuff on here, and
Men Who Stare at Goats is the one with Ewan McGregor, right?
Yes. Let's see if I can get back to it. The Men Who Stare at Goats, 2009. Yes, Ewan McGregor, Jeff Bridges.
I remember all of these movies coming out. I remember all these trailers. I'm part of the reason I'm so deeply aware of George Clooney is it's a big deal when his movies comes out. And I've seen them, and I know George Clooney's in them, but I haven't watched the movies.
What was that movie? Hang on. Maybe you could, I'm not going to scroll down because I feel like I'm coming up on the year that it came out. There was a movie where he was like some government agent, and he's thwarting a terrorist attack at a church. This is all, I'm trying to piece it together.
Doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
God, what was it called? I feel like the reason I'm trying to remember it had the same. I'm pretty sure it's like the same title of another movie. What was it? All right, maybe if I just look, I'll find it. Let's keep going. Burn After Reading, Entourage, Michael Clayton, Ocean's 13, The Good German, Syriana. Good Night, not Syriana? No, not Siri. Stop it. Stop. Go away, Siri. Oh God, it won't stop. It won't let me exit it. All right. Spy Kids 3, obviously. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Solaris, Welcome to Collinwood, Ocean's 11, Spy Kids, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Perfect Storm, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
The Perfect Storm. I saw that movie. I saw that movie 20 years ago.
Three Kings. I saw that movie.
Never saw that one. I remember
with my dad. That was one of those. It was 1999.
Yeah.
We were going to the movies to see things that I probably shouldn't see. The book that wrote itself, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. He was the voice of a doctor.
Really?
The Thin Red Line. I remember wanting to see that.
I definitely saw that movie. Probably around
The Peacemaker.
No idea.
That's it. This is the movie I'm talking about. It's Clooney and Nicole Kidman. A U.S. Army colonel and a civilian woman supervising him must track down a stolen Russian nuclear weapon before they're used by terrorists. And the reason...
That's a 1990s movie.
I saw this movie. I saw this movie in theaters in 1997. Definitely should not have seen this movie in theaters in 1997.
Yeah.
But classmates of mine were extras in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. In our St. Teresa's school uniform. And it's like, I wonder if we're going to be able to spot them. I'm like, sure enough, that's our uniform.
Couldn't miss them.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a weird George Clooney rabbit hole that we went down. What were we talking about? Consumption. Penguin.
Pastrami?
Batman. George Clooney.
Yeah,
all right.
It didn't go that way, but that was the gist of what we're talking about.
Yeah. I've constructed my own map. We're fine. Anyway, Penguin.
No, it was Zoe Kravitz. It was Zoe
Kravitz.
The Batman led us there, but you forgot the Zoe Kravitz.
Wow. I forgot the Zoe Kravitz of it all.
Yes. Actors directing. That's what took us there.
That's right. Amazing. Anyway, I'm watching the Penguin. I'm looking forward to watching the next episode. I'd like to see more. It's good.
Sorry, I just had this moment of getting back and you finishing your point there. After that rabbit hole reminded me of, like, you remember in, like, any of the times, there's one specific time, but they've done this several times throughout the course of it. But you know, like the chicken fights in Family Guy?
Yeah.
When, like, the chicken attacks Peter in the middle of another scene.
Yes.
And then they have, like, the 5-minute fight scene. And then it ends always with Peter walking off into the sunset, like, bruised and battered. You find out the chicken's still alive. And then it comes back and Peter continues on the scene as if nothing had happened.
Yep.
Like, specifically, I always think of the one when they're having the argument in the neighborhood out front. And I think he's yelling at Bonnie, like, you've been pregnant for how many years? Like, are you ever going to have that kid?
Yeah. You have the kid or don't, Bonnie.
And they have this whole fight. And then, like, he comes back and everyone's still standing out front. And, like, he just continues the scene.
Yeah. I love that. That's so perfect. Penguin good, but perfect to roll into a little juxtaposition here.
Okay.
Agatha All Along.
You started watching that?
I did. I watched one episode.
Okay.
And I was like, Catherine Hahn is a good actress.
Yes, I agree.
She's doing a really good job. And I'm not quite sure the material warrants it. And I'm waiting. And it's like, you know, pilot-ish issues, things. I'm like
landing the plane, or
yeah, basically. But it's just like it just like wasn't. First off, it's a very clunky start, and the reason being, you've already been introduced to this character, so they're doing a bit. They're doing a thing.
I mean, if they're gonna do a bit and do like a breaking of the fourth wall and all that, like, why not just
not that?
Like, what?
That's not what they're doing.
What do you
mean? They're not breaking the fourth wall or anything like that. They're doing like a thing.
Oh,
that's like they're trying to be clever, which I appreciate trying to be clever, but it goes on for a really long time where I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why are we even here? Like, because after 2 minutes you're like, okay, what's going on? And then after like 5 minutes you're like, okay, I think they're doing a thing, and we're gonna find out what's going on.
Okay. And
then the episode keeps fucking going, and I'm like, why? When are you gonna get to what's going on? and then they finally get to what's going on by the end of the episode. I'm like, okay, there we go. Now the show can start. And I'm like, oh, we did a whole episode leading up to now the show can start. And I'm like, and I was like,
it's a lot of preamble.
It's too much for a story that likely is not deserving of it, based on what we've gotten so far.
I have seen some people just say, can we just get to the point where they reintroduce Wanda and we can be done with the show?
Well, yeah, that's fair, because it does seem like that's kind of like where it's leading. But it's just like, it was a little painful. But the only thing, I feel like if it wasn't for her performance, I would have been like, not tonight, and eventually gotten back to it. But she's really good. Like, she's a really good actor. And like, because she's all over the place. She's being funny and serious.
I like her, and I liked her in that role. I just don't know if it necessarily needed a show.
I agree. Yeah, I'm with you. So we'll see where it goes. And granted, like, we're like, it's so clearly doing this like around now, just so that it could be like, let's do something a little fun and spooky. And like, it's got like some fun spooky stuff to it. Mm-hmm. And we'll see where it goes. But like,
and that's not even beginning to mention the Aubrey Plaza of it all.
Yeah, but I was just like, it was a rough start, and like in the complete opposite experience to watching The Penguin, where I was like, wow, that was really good. I'm excited for the next one. I was like, all right, that happened. I gotta find time to sit down and watch the next one.
Yeah,
like to actually like see if like it's worth. And here's the other thing too. They've just I'm a slave to this stuff, and I'm gonna end up watching all of it.
Yeah,
it's just like I don't want it to feel like a chore the whole time.
No, definitely.
And I did feel like by the end of the episode, I was like, okay, if we're getting on track, and we're starting to do a thing, and we're starting to tell a story, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Agatha gets her groove back is probably what the subtitle of the series is supposed to be, but that's what we're looking for now, and we're on that journey. I'm like, okay, the story has begun. And I was like, it took us a whole episode to get here.
Yeah.
Just respect my time is all.
God, they will not.
Is all I'm asking for. Even a little. Even pretend you're trying to. Don't Walking Dead me, and then have a talk show and a fucking documentary after each episode telling me why it's so great when it's like it's not. Like, you've gone off the rails and you need to rein it back in because you're killing me. But anyway, that's Agatha along. I'll next week we'll talk more. Let's see if I've gotten any further.
Okay. I mean, I'm vaguely interested. There's just no chance of getting to it anytime soon.
That's fine. You're not. It's fine. I would recommend you make space for Penguin.
I do genuinely want to watch that.
But you got it's a weekly release, so you could roll for 4 or 5 more weeks and then just watch it when you're ready.
Well, the other thing was like I was hoping to finish The Bear last night, and then I got home at almost 9:00 and just wasn't going to happen.
I need hands.
Sorry, you delivered that like Keanu Reeves in Speed.
Hands.
Yes. You threw me off for a second because I was like, hang on a second.
It was cans.
It's cans.
What? Cans. Wow. What a memorable scene.
It is and it isn't. The idea of
You know why it is? If you ever see the word cans and you've seen that movie, there's no shot you're not thinking about it. There's no shot.
Well, you're forgetting like an important link in this because I won't ever forget it because how much you obsess over it. So it's now become my thing, like by proxy.
Sure.
Because otherwise, like, no, she like blasts a carriage full of cans, and like that's traumatic. Oh yeah, that's a joke you do in that movie.
No,
Great.
no. It's so much more than that, though.
I would never remember. I've seen the movie a million times. I would never remember his delivery of that movie, except of that line in the movie, except for the fact that
that movie.
No, I mean, remember it deeply. I had this idea last year.
Huh.
Our many hiati. Is this 2 years ago now? Timeline's fucked up. There was a time within the last 2 years where I mentioned to you on an episode, I have this really cool idea of what I want to do with the podcast for like a specific episode. And I was like, I don't want to spoil it until I know it's viable.
Yeah.
And we did not record frequently enough for me to feel confident to do it. But I talk about the full cast all the time. Ryan Nanny ended up unexpectedly and for a substantial period of time mostly unemployed of his like actual job. Okay. And he announced that in his free time he was going to go on a podcast every week, no matter how big or how small. And they obsess for some reason over the movie Speed on occasion. And actually, shortly before that, all of them, the 4 of them, each made their Twitter avatars different shots from the movie Speed.
Fantastic.
And my idea was going to be, I want to say this was when we came back from the Elio hiatus. I said I wanted to do something. If we got enough like episodes in a row for a while, I wanted to reach out to Ryan and ask him to come on and do Speed with us.
Oh my god,
and we just didn't do enough episodes for me.
That's fair.
To feel right to do it. So like, and I've watched Speed probably 30 times. Like I've seen the movie too many times. It's a great movie, but I've seen it too many times. I remember many lines and like weird little quips, or whatever. Like I have stupid little things that I remember from that movie. Cams wouldn't have been one of them, except for you.
Sure. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
The idea of her hitting cans and that being like something that could have been terrible because she's running over a carriage and she has a freak out, and then it's like it turns out to be cans. Like that's memorable, but until you pointed it out, his delivery never stuck with me.
It's so good. Cans.
I watched it like 6 weeks ago. Like I've like the whole movie. Like I've seen the movie so many times. And like when we were watching, it was one of those things. Like it was just on like Saturday morning. Like we were cooking breakfast, eating breakfast, kind of sitting around because no one had anything to do.
Sure.
And like it was like Speed was just on, and like we're gonna watch all of Speed. I guess.
Why not?
Well, like in and around us getting up and doing things, whatever. But like Speed is on. And I was like, oh, here's Anthony's favorite scene, and my mom's like, what? And she blasts the fucking carriage, and then he goes cans. And I was like, that. She's like, what? I said, did you not? And I rewound. I was like, did you not catch how he said it? And she's like, what about it? I was like, it's just ridiculous how he delivers that line. I was like, for some reason, Anthony obsesses over this line, and it is bad. It is bad.
It's so bad it's good. But I would like to also point out the rest of that scene, and this is my memory of it because I'm so hung up on him delivering that line that I think I black out the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I remember correctly, she lets go of the wheel of the bus and covers her eyes.
He's steering.
Right? Of the explosive bus that needs to be moving over 55 miles an hour.
Yeah, he's standing.
She lets go of the wheel.
He's standing and steering over her shoulder with one hand, yes.
Cats. It's so good. It's so good. Here's a theory.
He's laughing.
He's
laughing during the scene.
He is laughing directly at her. You need some levity in a situation where a terrorist is strapped a bomb to a bus and you drop up to 55 miles an hour, it's going to explode and kill everybody on it. Keanu Reeves, right?
I'm familiar.
Everybody loves him.
Yep.
Right?
Pretty much.
Not always the case.
No.
Right? There was a point in time...
The first third of his career, everyone hated him.
Where Keanu Reeves was Nickelback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
You know what? He was... I don't know if it was Nickelback. Pick someone who's like pop... He was Justin Bieber.
Okay.
Then he was Nickelback. But the whole arc of Nickelback, people legitimately liked Nickelback. The first 3 or 4 years they were like really popular.
Yes, yeah.
And then everyone was like
Silver. What was that? I had an album. I had a Nickelback album. I can't remember. Silver something.
You're right. That definitely is
Silver.
Something silver.
Silver Side Up. Was that what it was called?
Maybe.
I had a Nickelback album. Nickelback appeared in a couple of superhero movies back in the day.
Yeah, I loved Nickelback in like 2002.
Yeah.
And then I grew up.
Well, okay, but here's what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, no, he had the whole thing. Like from it started to turn, I think, with Point Break, but I don't think people actually started to like him until Speed. I think people liked him between Speed and I don't know, The Replacements, which was like a 4 or 5 year span.
Sure.
And then there was still those 2 Matrix movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then people really got tired of him over the next like 10 years. Like Nickelback.
Yeah.
And then John Wick happened and everyone loves him. Like everyone just loves him full stop.
But here's the thing. Keanu Reeves has gone from butt of the joke to like everybody's hero. Everybody loves him. You see him, you're excited he's there. He's just great. Everybody's just happy, loves his energy. People are super into it, right? And I was thinking how like I was actually equating it to like he went the way of Nickelback, but he came back. I was like, does that mean that Nickelback is going to come back at some point? But then I was like, where's the missing link? Where's the piece in the middle, right? How do you get from Keanu Reeves then to Keanu Reeves now?
Humility.
You go by way of Creed. And Creed was like everybody decided that they hated Creed. And now people are coming around and like, actually, some of these songs slap. And
no, but people started to hate him because Scott Stapp became an asshole. That's why.
Okay.
They didn't stop liking the music. They stopped liking him.
Okay, I guess that's fair.
And he came back around and was like, "Guys, I'm sorry, I was an asshole. Can we be friends again?" And everyone's like, "Sure, Scott."
When they were with arms wide open,
exactly.
They came back, but now,
no one ever disliked Nickelback the people. They stopped liking the music.
Sure.
And that's not gonna change.
Let's see.
I don't
never
think.
Say never. What if they just drop an album like next year?
No, what we need
is for some reason
we're still 5 years. No, we're 5 years away from.
When does Nickelback get John Wick? That's what I want to.
No.
When they appear on John Wick 5's.
No, what we need is think about it. Right now, we're in the nostalgia window.
Sure.
Where content is being created that is nostalgia from the 90s. It's too soon for Nickelback. We're 5 to 10 years away from aughts nostalgia.
Yes.
That's when they come back.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
When aughts nostalgia transcends it's funny, ironic, we're gonna have a emo night and we're gonna play because that's been going on.
Yeah.
The brewery does that every once. They do an emo night 3 or 4 times a year.
Sure, I've gone to emo night Brooklyn,
and they'll play and I'm sure
it sounds just like my car.
I'm sure that sure. I still like the genre and the era of music, just don't like them. I'm sure Nickelback gets played at those.
Sure,
but we're not to the point yet where it's penetrated fully into pop culture, where we get a Stranger Things Nickelback edition.
Sure.
You need a show that is going to play, or a movie that's going to play Nickelback songs as the soundtrack, and people are going to be like, "Do you remember 2002?"
That ought to be an interesting time to be alive.
Yeah.
Your face says it all. All right. Consumption. What else you got?
So I consumed the football. The football I teased last week. I consumed it. I went to the Jets game. First of all, I was concerned it was going to rain. Glorious weather. In the Meadowlands, in an outdoor stadium, on a Thursday night in mid-September. High 60s, 5-mile-an-hour winds. Glorious. Perfect. Nice. The cherry on top, the Jets just absolutely steamrolled the Patriots on national television. It's... To say that was the most satisfying Jets game I've ever attended is selling it short. I mean, just truly the joy of the Jets just winning handily, just absolutely giving it to them. There's been times just watching games on
putting
TV.
The meat in.
Yeah, just putting the meat in. I was not going to go there. I was not. Not going to go there.
Sounded like you were going there.
I was not, and I was gonna keep it. I was gonna keep it PG.
It's all right. I clicked the explicit warning box when I published the show.
No, it's fine. It was a fantastic experience.
Is your sister went to the game?
My sister.
Your sister, my cousin.
Yeah, me, my dad, my brother, my sister, and her boyfriend. Who
does she care about the Patriots, or was she just trolling you all?
Her boyfriend is a Patriots fan.
Oh, okay, cool.
And she took that as an opportunity to then be a troll. Yes.
Well done, G.
Yeah, she's never cared, despite the fact that we've all been watching football our entire lives. Despite the fact that I played football into college, and Dominic also played football through all of high school, in middle school, high school. Never gave a shred of a shit about football in her entire life, despite the fact that it was just there. Not doesn't like it.
Sure.
Doesn't care.
Yeah.
Still doesn't understand how she has been to so many football games that we played. Never made the slightest effort to learn.
Sure.
She'll sit down and watch the Super Bowl. She'll ask questions occasionally. Mm-hmm. I told you she's doing fantasy football.
Yep.
At the behest of her boyfriend and his friends. She still doesn't know how the game works. She understands 10 yards to pick up a first down, touchdown, 7 points. That's probably the extent of it.
Sure.
But yeah, no, she came with us to the game. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, she bought some fucking vintage looking Patriot sweatshirt to wear.
Good for her.
I knew she was wearing it. She had told me ahead of time. She didn't tell Dominic and my dad about it.
Amazing.
So they found out that day. The 5 of us drove down together. Got to have a couple beers in the lot. Went inside. It was a great time. Great experience.
Nice. That sounds
a lot of fun.
blast.
Same thing Saturday. Went to the Army game. Army absolutely rolled. Not like I'm like a huge Army fan, but it's cool. Like they're local.
Mm-hmm.
It's a service academy. Like they're like, there isn't really major college sports in general and specifically football in the state of New York. Syracuse is in the ACC. That's like a major thing. They're never really anything like that actually matters. And like Syracuse is still like 3.5 hours from me or something like that, let alone like most people in the lower Hudson Valley to like the city, whatever, like where the vast majority of our population of this state exists. Yeah. So Army is Division I. Like it's cool. It's cool to go support them. They absolutely steamrolled Rice, who is not like a serious football school in any way, shape, or form, but like they're legitimately good at what they do. It is fun to go for a game day experience. It's cool. My car almost got flooded into the Hudson River.
Cool.
Yep. I went to a game 2 years ago. I've been to 3 or 4 games over the years. I went to a game 2 years ago with my dad and one of his friends and his friend's son. And we got there. Usually Army games at West Point start at noon on Saturdays. We got there probably like 9.
Okay.
We got to park like right inside the gate. It's right up the hill from the stadium, or right down the hill from the stadium. You have a little shuttle bus, whatever, it takes you up. So we hang out, had some breakfast sandwiches, had some beers, cool. Ride the shuttle up. It's a 4-minute ride. Walk in the stadium, watch some football. We went with a slightly bigger group this weekend. Could not get everyone on the same page and early enough. And I was like, telling you guys, it's going to take a long time to get in, and we're not going to get a good place to park, and I don't know where they're going to stick us. Yeah, so that's exactly what ended up happening. They park us down at like the South Dock, which I've never even been down in that area of the campus before. It's like there's like a train station there. I don't even know if the train station is functional. Like there are boats that go in and out of there. Park, whatever. Me and Dominic and 2 of his friends are hanging out. Half the group's not there yet. Tossed football around, had some beers. Great. Took the shuttle up. It's a little longer ride. Not a big deal, but it's like straight up the hill. Because like West Point is built like on like the side of a mountain, basically. Mm-hmm. Like the river goes like straight up a cliff. Okay. We come back down at the end of the game, and we're coming down the hill, and we get over the train tracks, and we get into the lot, and the half of the lot that's against the river is underwater. Oh my god! And like the water is like knee deep, where like the front tires of like some of these cars are parked. And I was on the opposite end, which was dry, but like it was coming. Yeah. And, I felt bad because like there's people on our bus like, oh my god, our car. I was like, yeah, oh my god, your car. Car.
I'm fine.
So and I would have been fine anyway because like my truck is like got like the raised suspension anyway. So like, I was fine. I would have been knee deep in water, which I would have been unhappy with, but the car would have been fine.
That's brutal.
But that was cool. After the game, we went up to dinner. There's this cool taco spot that's like there's a pizzeria and a taco place that are like joined building. It's an old rail station from like I don't know how long ago. There's train tracks right behind
it. Sounds like you're like very eloquently describing a combo Pizza Hut Express.
It basically is because it is shared. It's owned by the same people. It's owned by the same people who own the pizza or who own the Italian restaurant where those gorgonzola fries are from. No, that's not there.
How dare you bring that up?
They're on the whole other end of the city of Newburgh, like in the town of Newburgh. But it's all the same ownership group. Okay. And so there's like an indoor taco place. You can walk through it into the pizza place. Pizza place has been around forever. The taco place has only not been around for as long. It used to be something else on that side. And then there's an outdoor seating that is for both, I guess. It definitely was for the taco place because like all the menus are there. But it was cool because it's like the type of place where like you fill out like a sushi card with like, but like for like the table. So like you tally up what everyone wants, and they just bring you out like this huge tray with like 400 tacos. Like they're like the little street tacos. That's super cool. It's like right down the street from. It's going to be right around the corner from where we're going to be for the craft beer festival.
Oh,
It's like directly up. It's like literally one block from the brewery. So
cool.
Yeah, so that was a good time. And then so like as I pulled out of there, I was like, you know what? I'm right here. Let me go get those steins.
There you go. There it is, full circle. Sounds fun. I took your advice. I signed on to my fantasy account on that Sunday morning.
Oh, that's right. You texted me about a bunch of shit this weekend. I forgot about that.
I had Al dust off the cobwebs on fantasy football.
Yeah, you haven't looked at it since you drafted your team, right?
That's right.
It's been 3 weeks. That was the third week of the season. You had looked
with
at
the
it.
adjustments that I made. I won.
Oh, good.
So there we go. Let's keep on that and keep that happening. We'll destroy the rest of this company.
Yeah.
Sure. I started watching Rings of Power.
I have also not. I'll probably watch that before I watch Penguin, but I do want to watch those two things.
Watched one episode. It took me a couple settings to get through it, just due to other things going on. But well executed. Good job with the recap video, which I appreciate.
Oh, good.
They did so you could just jump in. They cover it well enough. Interested to see how it progresses, because it was very much. The first episode very much takes the approach of doing like two storylines, one right now and one of Sauron like before.
Oh,
so like kind of leading up to how did we get here?
Yeah.
So that's been interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm looking forward to watching more. There's something about that show where like I'm not. I think it's like I thought this with the first season. Like it was like I really enjoyed watching it. But I'm never like I gotta make sure I make some time to watch the next one. Like when I have the time to watch the next episode of it, like I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I'm not like rushing to get to it, which is fine.
I think the thing that we both said when we were talking about the first season, was whatever our ups and downs with the actual show, visually it's gorgeous to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's a good looking show. Anyway, enjoying that so far. And then finally, we just started the third season of The West Wing. Through a very intense season finale of season 2.
How many seasons were there total?
5?
Okay. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it's 5. The second season focuses around. Do you care? Do you care if I tell you? Or are you going to watch it eventually?
5 years from now, who knows?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could spoil it.
All right. So, well, it's not like it's like, because really, it's with the show like this, it's about the execution of like the script and stuff. So, like,
as long as it's not about like a major character that I'm going to fall in love with who's going to get killed off.
Oh no, it's not like that. Basically, because they talk about it early on. I think you catch a drift of it in the first season. It becomes something in the second season. But basically, the president has a form of MS.
I was aware that the president has some medical condition. I didn't know.
Remitting, relapsing, something like that.
Okay.
Basically, he's in remission, and it's a type that like he could be fine with.
Yeah.
But it could also one day not be fine.
Mm-hmm. And
the public doesn't know. That's the thing.
A president having a medical infirmity that we don't know about?
Yeah. He does make a joking comment about how there's a precedent for it, which I thought was fun wordplay.
There's probably like at least a third of the presidents we've have had some version of that.
Sure. But anyway, it's like that. Like that's the thing, and it's going to come out.
A lot of people didn't realize that FDR had polio.
Yeah, yeah.
That he couldn't walk. Like a lot of people apparently didn't know.
I just thought he liked sitting down.
Yeah,
so he liked rolling chairs.
Like when he talked about sitting by the fire, I never took that to mean anything other than he enjoyed a nice fire.
But the second season like focuses on that, and like how like it's gonna come out, and like they're basically gonna try to control the story, and he's gonna tell the public and on all this stuff, and they're like it leads into like this really really intense final episode of the season where he's leading into the press conference, and his I know the character's name. I don't know what the position. I forget what the position is called. His press secretary. So
that is a position.
Is that like anyway? Is like
Chief
basically
of
like
staff?
No, specifically the press secretary is like call on this person first before you call on anybody else.
Okay.
And he's like, why can't I just? It's like because this person is ready to ask you a health question with about 3 follow-ups to it. Everybody else is going to ask you, are you going to run again? Like, and
he's going to ask you the actual questions about the condition.
Yeah, she's like, it's going to give you time to get comfortable, get situated before you start answering the questions that you don't want to, like, that that you're going to be forced to answer. And he's like, okay. And a whole bunch of other stuff is going on, like leading him to like kind of like coming to this moment of what he's going to do.
This is Martin Sheen's the president, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it comes down to he gets up there, he makes eye contact with the guy that he's supposed to ask, and he very deliberately asks somebody else. And he's like, "Are you going to run again?"
That also
and he puts his hands in his pocket.
That sounds like a Sorkin trope to me.
Yeah, he puts his hands in his pocket and he smiles, and the season ends. And that's a callback to like flashbacks of his character. It's very artfully crafted. It is a very well done show. But I was like, man, that was really good. And then we watched the first episode of the third season, and we don't even address this at all, which I thought was surprising. Because I feel like coming back from, if I was like watching the show like like when it was on, coming back, I would have been like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we're not going to talk about it at all yet?"
I know this for a fact because you were just describing that with the Agatha show.
Yeah. But the in the show's defense, the first episode of the third season, one of the best episodes of the show.
Which that's the only way you get away with doing that.
Oh, I mean, so like it's a really interesting. They like, because the characters are so good. They're all so well written. The performers have such incredible chemistry. Like anytime there's any sort of like animosity or like if any of them are butting heads, they are always still on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
And like they make I feel like they've like that. I feel like that's like probably like one of the things that's like on the wall in the writing room, like same team. Like, you know what I mean?
Which is, it's got to be interesting watching that after having watched Veep, where they were so fundamentally incapable of being on the same team.
Yeah,
where they were all constantly looking for every opportunity to backstab each other and betray each other.
Yeah, it's almost like Veep was like, let's watch the West Wing and do like the opposite of every character. But so basically what happens is like there's a lockdown situation in the White House while this is the premise of the first episode of the third season, while there's a student group coming through that like, you know, they did some essays or whatever, like they got like picked, and they coming in, they get to talk to some high up people, and Josh, who's one of the great characters, my favorite character on the show probably, is supposed to like kind of be the person that they talk to, and he's like just wants to go home. And so he gets there, and while he's in the room and starts to talk to them, he's like trying to like wrap it up. They get locked in. Like they get like this. They lock the door. They do a whole lockout, a crash situation. And he's like, well, now we're here. So they like bring them to like the mess hall, and they all sit down and they start talking, and they get into it. And like they start like the kids have questions about like, and I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm fairly certain this is probably 2001. Or 2002. So they very tastefully handle terrorism in that sequence, and like the feeling like why, like there's a lot of why are they trying to kill us conversations happening, and Josh like explaining like origins of terrorism and like all this, and it gets really interesting, and he's starting to really connect with the kids and talk to them, and I'm like, hey, we're gonna be here for a while, go grab a snack, I'm going to get some people to come in and talk to you. And like he, like one by one, the rest of the main cast, like for the season, is reintroduced, and they're like coming to the room, and they say their piece, and they're having conversations, and like they're arguing back and forth, but they're like, again, same team. And like these kids are like really taking it in, and it's just like a really excellent, it's just like, it's so well done. Everything they have to say is so well polished. And it was just like, I was like, man, this show, like there is good writing and bad writing, and then there's just extraordinary writing, and this is that. I just love it so much. It's so well done. It reminds me of the glory days of Newsroom.
Yeah,
and which makes sense. But like because you could also see, but you could see how like Newsroom is super polished and super tight in its 2.5 seasons.
Yeah,
right, and they're not running up against, they don't have like that the story's closing. There's still plenty more to go, and you could tell. And it seems like they probably, I'd be curious like by the end if I feel like I'm ready for it to be over, or if it's like, but you could just see like the shows are a little bit longer. The seasons are much longer than Newsroom, so like you can see it like it doesn't suffer from. It has to deal with the constraints of television at the time, but it does it really well.
Yeah,
like in a 20 episode season, they're nailing every episode. Like it's just really good writing.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you put these actors in there that are just so believable as like colleagues, friends, and also like have, they all each have their own life and opinions, and it all comes through on the screen. It's just, the show is fantastic.
It's funny. I realized that my concept in my mind of when the show existed didn't match up with when it actually existed. 100% anyway. Because you were mentioning like that episode being clearly in response to 9/11.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? The third season lined up with 2001? Because in my mind, this was like a show that like existed from like 1992 to 1999 or something like that.
Sure.
And I just looked it up like while you were like mentioning that, and I was like, this ran from 99 to 2006? That doesn't sound right at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense to me.
That sounds made up.
It's like, that can't be right.
But it's funny because only in talking to you did I even connect the dots of like when that season must have been, and it definitely was the overlapping time frame,
Yeah.
which is like, hey, we're doing a show in the White House. There's no way we can't address this. How do we do this tastefully? And how do we do this in a way that works with our
Well, not
show?
just that, but like Sorkin's always been very big in his opinions. Like his shows have been so that he can get his opinions out there.
Sure.
And he probably hated how the country responded.
Yeah.
In like those first days anyway, like how like what the rhetoric was, like the Islamophobia stuff.
Yeah.
And so he decided, well, I have an opportunity to do it the way I would have like wanted to be done, and it's to be with more grace. Like that's always, I'm not an expert on him. I've watched enough of his stuff, I feel like, at this point to like feel like I have some like gist of how he is with these things. And it's like, if you look at how like those like things, like what like the whole premise of the Newsroom is, and like what I know of the West Wing is like in his mind, this is how things should be.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing an episode where it's like, how should we handle people being afraid, rightfully afraid?
Yeah.
And not knowing and not understanding.
It's so good.
And like how do we handle giving the information to these people in a way that educates them to not be fearful? Because like in the way that fear leads to hatred. Again, totally understandable, justifiable fear.
Sure.
Like how should the government do that? And how that is juxtaposed against how the government did do that. And I'm like, sure, they got some things right, but they definitely got some things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene in the Newsroom. They reference it a few times, but there's a specific one. I think it's in the first season, maybe it's in the second season, where Will talks about Will, right? It's been a while. It's been a long time now. Will talks about Camelot, like what we're going for. Yeah. And that's a microcosm for everything Sorkin's done, I feel like. Camelot is what he's always, like, that's what all of his shows and movies are, right? He's writing what, like, the Camelot of this thing should be. Like, what the idealized version of this thing should be. The West Wing was like, if the White House and the federal government was Camelot, it would look like it does on my show. Mm-hmm. If the American media was Camelot, it was the idealized version of what the American media should be. That it would look like it looks like in the Newsroom. Yeah. Right? Like, that's what he goes... And, like, there are a lot of people who don't like that. There are a lot of people who don't like Aaron Sorkin because they find him to be, like, hacky or too idealistic. Like, too idealistic in the sense of, not that that isn't a nice thing to strive for, but to, like, think it's even possible with the way, like, how shitty people are. Like, you're being naive to even write that. And I get that criticism. I don't really agree. Like, I don't think it's invalid criticism, but it just doesn't resonate with me to the extent of, like, actually feeling that way. Like, I objectively understand where people are coming from when they have that opinion. I just don't share it to the extent that, like, those people.
What I think is interesting is, like, he has this, like, I get what you're saying about like you know, the ideal version, the idealized like idea of like what like the society should be or what the government should be. But I think what's interesting from my perspective, like in watching his stuff, is that it's not that, it's just that thing is in reach. And I think that, and our character, and this is what makes for some of the best parts of his storytelling, is our like lead, our quote unquote, because they're very ensemble-y casts, but like our quote unquote lead is that's like trying to shepherd us towards that ideal version that he has in his mind. When they get frustrated because they just can't get there, like that ends up making for some of the best moments in the stories, like because it shows the cracks of that person. And they do that really well in The West Wing, and I think they did that with Will a couple times in Newsroom, if I remember correctly. So like those end up making for like really great scenes.
They do, but those moments and those scenes and those characters are meant to be Aaron Sorkin inserts. That's him grabbing the microphone and yelling, "This is how I want it to be. This is how it should be." And I'm not even saying he's wrong or right.
Sure.
But like those are the moments where it's like I am grabbing the microphone and talking directly to you, the audience. This is how it should be, and I'm mad because it's not that way.
Sure. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that.
I'm not saying everybody that's making
a thing is doing that. So.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just like I'm identifying that that's what that phenomenon is.
Gotcha.
Based on my understanding of the man and his work.
Sure.
Like it's just, and I think you're right. It's not that these shows depict Camelot, because Camelot is unattainable, right? It's not real. But the whole point of these shows is writing out like a roadmap to get there. And like the point, what I think the critics of him miss is, the point is we often seem not even to strive for it. And what the merit in these shows, the merit in the characters in these shows, is one or more of them striving for it and seeing who's willing to come along with them on that ride. And wistfully thinking, if more people were willing to listen to and observe the person striving and match their effort, we wouldn't get Camelot, but we would get better.
Yeah.
And that is aspirational in a way that I do appreciate. And like there are some people who are too cynical to appreciate that. And like I do get that.
Sure.
Which is why I say like I do understand the criticism, even though I don't agree with it wholeheartedly. I agree with parts of it, but like
I gotcha.
Not in a way that outweighs my appreciation for it.
Yeah, that's fair. Any other consumption?
One more. I did text you this weekend. I watched Twisters.
Oh, yeah.
I watched Twisters. I put it on our docket as like a question mark.
Okay.
Because it is on... Well, I've rented it. But it will be on a streaming at some point in the coming month.
Well, if you rented it, that means I could rent it. It's accessible. It's
accessible.
That's all that matters, is that we could both get to it.
It's accessible if you want. I put it later on the docket because by then...
Yeah, it'll probably
maybe it's available on a streamer and you can just watch it.
It'll be quote unquote free.
Yeah.
It'll be I paid for it masquerading around as free.
It will be no additional cost.
That's right. There it is. No
There we go. We got there. So I watched Twisters. It was cool. It's both the same and not the same movie as the first one.
Sure.
It's what the best version of a requel can be, in the sense of we are doing this.
It was the best of storms. It was the worst of storms.
I will say, these storms.
Was there a cow? If there's no cow throwback, both figuratively and literally.
What I will say to you is,
cows.
There is a tornado that strikes when the two main characters are at a rodeo.
Hell yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to promise, or I'm not going to confirm or deny. I'm not going to anything. I also will not tell you what the final storm does, because that was a pretty cool escalation. If you thought you saw some cool stuff in the first one, I mean, like, maybe this is a jumping the shark moment. But in a movie like Twister and Twisters, if you're not jumping the shark or throwing the cow,
sure.
Like, what are we even doing here?
Why bother at that point? I will say.
So there was a visually audacious
I'm excited.
set piece towards the end of the.
You're making me want to watch this.
It's a fun movie. It's dumb. But it's fun.
You're making me want to watch the original as well.
It's a disaster movie, but I usually cringe at disaster movies, and like some of this is cringy, but like I don't know. It did capture the spirit of like Philip Seymour Hoffman, hooting and hollering as they're driving around and shit. Like they're whatever. Like Glenn Powell's Glenn Powell. He's doing Glenn Powell things, and I like that. Was it Daisy Edgar Jones? I want to say is her name. She's having a moment right now. She had that movie that like they promoted the ever living fuck out of that movie that came out a couple years ago that she was in, and I haven't seen her in anything. Those Where the Crawdads Sing. I want to say that's what it was called.
Okay,
it's based on a book.
Based on a book. That's a screenplay. Twister. I haven't seen Twister probably since like the year it was out. Maybe a couple years after I watched it again. Blockbuster video rental. But
I've seen that movie in parts not so many times, but I haven't seen it like actually start to finish in forever. I kind of forget how it all goes.
And this, I could be completely misremembering this scene, but not a day goes by that I wear a belt that it crosses my mind. If I needed to tie this around a pipe
in a barn,
I could probably withstand a twister.
Not the twisters in this movie.
They rip the belt clean up, but he does that, right? Does he take his belt off and he use it as like an anchor?
That's the climax of the movie. It's the two of them.
I don't remember. I'm telling you, it's been a really long time.
They realize that they cannot escape that particular tornado. So they go run inside. They go hunker down inside a barn, hoping that it will buy them some time.
Got it. Yes.
They loop a belt around the two of them around the pipe. And the tornado disintegrates the barn around them.
Sure.
Spoiler alert for Twister. And they get to witness the literal eye of the storm.
Yeah.
The tornado blows over them as they're getting buffeted around, hanging onto this pipe. They're inside the column looking up and seeing clear sky above the fucking tornado.
Yeah, okay. This sounds awesome. I vaguely remember this. And that's probably why it stuck with me. But I do have my belt is a belt that I bought for travel purposes that can't be easily cut with a knife. So I think that it could hold us.
Okay. It was a belt you bought so you couldn't get like pickpocketed? So like someone couldn't like cut your fanny pack off? Is that what this was?
That is, that's kind of what it's for. But it's the belt itself also has a stash pocket. So like I carried like when we went overseas, like I carried like photo copies of our passports for like a worst case scenario type situation, and like emergency cash in the secret pocket of the thing. And if that thing like because that is a pickpocketing maneuver would be to cut the belt and just pull, right? But you can't. It's whatever like the material is. It's got metal within.
It's like got that braided
woven into it, where like you can't just easily cut it.
You need to like saw at it. You can't just one slice.
It's not gonna. No one shot with that. But anyway, that's my regular belt now because it's comfortable.
This one, there's no belting themselves to pipes, but they do play around with watching a storm like rise and fall, and like how people should and shouldn't react to that, like as like the experts trying to explain to the amateurs and like all that, and like where do you hide and how do you hide. And I will say this, I don't want to spoil anything about the movie, what anyone's motivations are, this and that. So the first movie was about getting hard science on tornadoes, right? The premise of the movie was we see a tornado, we know like, okay, like it's about the temperature differential and that causing this like violent reaction that's a storm. We're going to take these little devices we made, we're going to have a storm pick it up, and we're going to try and read it and evaluate it and understand it.
Yeah.
This one, the opening scene, they still have that big like cylinder filled with all those little devices. But they're going to the next step. We understand a little bit more about tornadoes now. Can we kill one?
I love it. I
won't say what or how or why, because it takes like the whole movie to like actually describe what it is. Like they do in the opening scene. Spoiler alert, they don't succeed.
We're going to kill the Declaration of Independence.
Basically. I don't remember if anyone I brought the brine full circle. You better bring killing the Declaration of Independence full circle. I don't remember if they actually explained the mechanism by how they wanted to kill the tornado, and I don't think anyone ever says we're going to kill tornadoes. But
but that's what I heard.
The simplified version, but the goal is, like, is there a way, once a tornado is formed, to mitigate how a tornado is going to fuck up an area? And, like, that's the arc of the movie.
What if they just do one of those Ghostbuster boxes?
Well, I think there might be a technology that would allow you to store a tornado in a can. You remember Mystery Men?
When you open it.
The tornado in a can?
I do remember that, yes. Wow.
Non-lethal.
Well, with that, Jesus, let us get into our flick of the week. Civil War, released in 2024, rated R, with a 1 hour and 49-minute runtime. Your IMDb synopsis. A journey across a dystopian future America following a team of military-embedded journalists as they race against time to reach D.C. before rebel factions descend upon the White House.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very specifically, the mechanics by which the story is explored.
Yes.
Why don't you kick us off with a Toot-length review?
A dark and sobering look at a dangerous and thankless job, parenthetically. Even if those not receiving thanks are a touch self-important in this. Close parenthetical. Amidst the unthinkable happening in a place where, quote, it can't happen here, unquote. You know, unless we let it happen here. 7.5 out of 10.
Nice. Wow, that's two. We're 2 or 3 weeks in a row where we have the same exact score, which is interesting. A fresh domain with the same DNA, Alex Garland follows his traditional MO, provoke thought.
I do think that's his MO.
Yeah, this seems to be it. 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, I agree. I had tempered my expectations on this movie based on feedback that I've heard from folks that have seen it, and just like general temperature checks on it along the way.
I think this movie is so overtly provoke thought about, like, some specific things that it was always going to get it, like, it was always going to be almost impossible to get a really accurate barometer as to, like, what this movie is. Because I do think, and we'll talk about it more, to an extent, I don't know how much we want to talk about it, considering we don't usually get too specifically political on this show. Like, it's just not productive to the conversation we're having. I appreciate and respect and think it was the right choice with respect to telling the story he was trying to tell, that while you may try to glean this and that about what you think this person or this faction or that faction's motivations are politically with respect to, like, specifically what's going on in real life in this world versus in this movie, there is never any specific reference to who's right-wing this, left-wing that, who's good, who's bad.
Yeah.
And I know from the beginning, from the outset...
Except with the exception of Jesse Plemons. Jesse Plemons bad.
Sure. But not for political reasons, because he's a psychopath killing people.
Just because he's bad.
From the outset, this movie was always going to be polarizing for the reasons he was trying to avoid. Even though I think he did a masterful job of avoiding those reasons. That if you were willing to give this movie a chance, you would see that it's not about left good, right bad, or vice versa.
Right.
This movie's not about that. And it makes it pretty clear they're not doing that in this movie. You could choose to glean whatever detail here and there. But this movie is whether this movie is meant to be or not, it is a Rorschach test. If you read into it, it's because you're bringing that to it mostly. Not, like, there are a little thing here and there. But big picture, and I, like, from the outset, and, like, people were complaining about this when the trailer came out, whatever. Oh, well, Texas and California would never join in something like this. Yeah. Which was the point of doing it. You're not doing a left versus right story. That's not what this is about. And if you can't see that, you've already lost.
Right.
Which is fine. Like, if this isn't for you, that's fine. It's okay for it to not be for you. We've talked about that on the show a million times now. If something's not for you, or if you're not going to engage with the thing, that's your choice. And you do not receive judgment from me for not wanting to engage with the thing.
Sure.
But don't criticize it if you haven't engaged with it.
Right.
Once you've spent your... And you don't even have to spend your dollars. Once you spent your time watching the movie, you can have whatever opinion you want on it.
Sure. You can't pass that judgment before you actually experienced it, not just sat there on your phone while it was on and
not just write someone else's take on it either.
Yeah,
I mean, like, I'm not saying, like, if you like to read reviews before you see a movie, if you don't, that's fine too.
Sure.
But don't base your opinion of the movie, like the merits of the movie, until you've actually watched it. Like, you could go in informed with what you think is going to be good or not good about the movie because someone that you trust's opinion, or someone whose opinion you don't trust, but you just happen to read it or listen to it. Like, that's all fine. But at the end of the day, let your own thoughts and convictions stand and be the ones that, like, what you earned with, like, your own time and your own mind engaging with the art. Like, that is what we all need to be doing. And I'm not saying I've been guilty of that in the past. And, like, I do every once in a while read a review here and there, whether it be, like, trusting my close personal friend Alan Sepinwall or whomever. Like, but even when I read those people's things, I use that occasionally as, here's some things for me to look for. But a lot of times I end up disagreeing with their evaluation at the end. Sometimes I like that guided, like almost like that guided meditation type of thing of, here's some things to look for. Here's some things to ground you, like to put your focus onto and evaluate it for yourself. But I don't always agree with those things. In fact, I often don't. But it is nice to, like, know that these are the things that, like, maybe I wasn't paying attention to. Like, that's kind of an important thing within this. Like, there's some subtext there, like, I might have gotten, or I might not have. Sometimes it's nice to know that ahead of time. But a lot of times I try to wait till afterwards. I'll watch it. I'll come up with my own opinions. Then I'll read someone else's things. Like, oh, you know what? I didn't quite get how important that was. That's interesting. I don't agree with this and that of it, but I didn't even, like, realize how important that was in this aspect. You know?
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I completely agree. It's the same frustration that I've had with anybody that is seemingly complaining about any movie that is obviously regurgitating something they watched on YouTube and haven't, as you said, engaged with the material. The
worst thing is, there's been a couple of times where I've had conversations with people. Someone said a thing, and I'm like, not only is that not your opinion, it's something you read. I fucking know where you read it. Because I read it too. Verbatim. Right. I read the same damn article you did.
Yeah.
Like, I know what you're... Like, I know that's not your opinion, because that exact expression you just made, I remember reading that 3 days ago.
Right.
And it's like, how am I supposed to take this conversation seriously? I'm not going to say, how am I going to take you seriously? Because
that's when you pull a Ted Danson and you say, I'm not part of this. You walk away. So... I will say, going into the movie, I thought it was it had been a long time since I saw the original trailer, and I don't quite remember what was there. I feel like it was more of a thematic type of trailer, showing some, like, there's a civil war, it's happening, there's sides, and it seemed like it was going to be about that. That's kind of like what my impression was from the original trailer that I watched.
It's about that.
I don't know that it is. It's about the journalists.
Yes.
Right. So, like, and that I didn't know what I didn't glean that at all.
Not originally. From the first trailer. The second trailer made it more obvious. Although still, I did hear it. We both wanted to see this in theaters, and for different reasons. You having kids, me not having kids, their reasons were different. We just, neither of us unfortunately got to it, which I hate, because I wanted to be able to pay my $10 or $20 to go support Garland, because I feel like he's gotten a bum rap commercially. Like, it's not, I don't think it, we love his work. We love his work. Yeah.
We are fans of Alex Garland on Flix.
So I wish I could have, like, supported that, and I just didn't have the time to go have that experience, unfortunately. I feel bad for it, you know, not that, like, my $10 or $20 was going to make or break this movie, but I still like to go support the people that I enjoy, because I want them to keep creating things that I enjoy.
Yeah. No, I hear that. But like going in, it took me a few, maybe I don't know, maybe 10, 20 minutes to kind of recalibrate, like in watching, like wait, what am I watching? Like, what
for a second, I started and then I lost track of it. I had heard that this movie is about the journalist. I'd even heard we don't even know like what the whole point of it is, and by the end of it, it's like it's never really clear what the war is about, which again is like to the point I was making before. I think probably the right choice overall. I understand feeling robbed of that or whatever, but like I knew that this was actually about not just the journalists in like a narrative sense, but thematically about journalism. I did know that going in by the time I sat down to watch this. So I didn't realize you didn't know that.
Yeah. I definitely did not. And I recalibrated. And once I did, I was like, I then like very much was like locked into what was going on and really enjoying it. And like occasionally throughout going like, what I'm confused as to what this person or like what these group of people are doing. And then I would have to pull myself out and be like, never mind. As I've recalibrated, that's not what we're talking about here. We're moving past that. And I was like, and then it was kind of like a fun journey to be like, wait, why is this happening? It doesn't matter. It's how we're telling the story. I was like, great. I mean, I just kept going with that. And once you like really focus in on the journalists, it was really interesting. I thought it was really well done. There were some really great characters and they have a lot of depth, and he's no stranger to writing people like this. And like, but in a very show don't tell way, and he once again pulls it off, because like even in a movie like this there where it is dialogue heavy, it's really like the actions that the people are taking that are telling their story and showing you who they are.
You know what's funny about this movie? I didn't really make this connection until like a couple minutes ago, and it's weird that I didn't. Maybe I needed to see the movie to make the connection, because on the surface the topics couldn't be any more dissimilar. He's come full circle. This movie's 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
It's the same movie, and that's not criticism at all. It's actually some like appreciative like nod to that.
Yeah.
It's 4 people got in a car in a road trip at the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it's not about a zombie apocalypse. It's not about a civil war. It's about people and how they interact and how they deal with these situations. Now, I do think there is more of a message in this movie with like the specifically looking through the lens of journalism.
Sure.
Versus, I don't think there was that sort of underlying message in that way with 28 Days Later. At least not anything so specific or so pointed.
Uh-huh.
I think that was more an idea of societally, like how we deal with crisis and how we find family and how we interact with those things. Because a lot of that is true in this movie as well. But specifically, how we can use that to inform a conversation about a specific aspect of our society.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can use that as the ultimate evidence of how he's learned and grown as an artist since then, where he had a really cool story to tell then.
Yeah.
He has a really cool story to tell here, but he has a really important thing he wants to point at and talk about as well. And there is like a meta thing that happens within this movie where they keep talking about in the thing like, our job is to not tell you how to think about a thing, but to point at something and tell you to think about it.
Look.
And that's what he does in this movie, right? I'm sure he has his opinions on media, but he doesn't really explicitly say what's right and wrong in it. He just is pointing a finger and saying, there's media, there's things that are happening there. Should we maybe think about those things?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a pretty cool arc to watch over the course of his life and career in the last 25 years.
Hey, provoke thought. I was gonna wait until later to do this, but since you brought up 28 Days Later, I'm gonna pull on this thread a little bit longer. We're about a third of the way through the movie. Kim and I were watching it, and I was like, and so I'm not sure how familiar you are with the tie-in B release, like the tie-in B movie that like very closely maps to something that is out. So like back in the day when I would like hang out in Blockbuster a lot. Well, my friends worked there.
Mm-hmm.
There would be like at around the same time as something was releasing in theaters, there would be a VHS release or a DVD release of, I don't know why I said VHS, a DVD release of something of a very similar name that is clearly a B movie, ripping off the concept in hopes of just like grabbing a few rentals.
Like Scary Movie?
Like Snakes on a Train.
They couldn't even come up with like, it couldn't have been like, I don't know, mongooses on a train or something.
No,
like
it was Snakes on the Train. It was the taste of betrayal.
I thought you were going like Scream, Scary Movie, like parody.
No. This is like a legit B movie, like no budget. Let's get something out there and try to grab some dollars.
So this is worse than a parody. This is outright ripoff.
It's an outright ripoff. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a thing that happens.
Yeah, I mean, like I do know what you're talking about. I don't remember that specific example, but
so we're about a third of the way through the movie, and I turned to Kane. I was like, I don't mean this in a way of negative towards us at all. I'm like really enjoying the movie. I think the performance is great and whatnot. I was like, but what is going on with this B movie version of The Last of Us? And I was like, because these two characters mirror Joel and Ellie so closely. And I was like, what's his name? And I looked it up and it was Joel. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, why do we I think my exact words to her, why do we like, what's going on with the bootleg Pedro Pascal?
Well, I was going to say, this isn't just a Wagner Maura fucking Pedro Pascal thing, was it?
No. It was a little bit, but it was more the characters. It was like it was the way the two characters work together. It was like that kind of protective nature that he has over her. But
it is a little different because you have the 4 of them versus the 2 of them.
This is totally not a real thing. I'm just like playing around, right? But like there was aspects of it. There's like this dystopian nature of the future. There's like this journey that they're going on to get somewhere. There's these two characters that like, relatively similar in age to have like this kind of almost father-daughter relationship, but they're not father and daughter. And on top of all that, anytime there's this moment of like quiet, there's a guitar song that they play in here that is 100% the same song. It's the theme of The Last of Us. Where I was like, once the credits roll, I was like, oh, come on. when it started playing that, I just couldn't stop thinking about it all the way through the movie. That and of course, Nick Offerman was in both The Last of Us. Further. Very different character in The Last of Us. But anyway, it was just something funny that crossed my mind while I was watching it. And like, I couldn't like, but so much so that like, I was like, there's gotta be influence here. Like there's gotta be something, because this is not just like, there's so many things that happened where I was just like, I was looking up and there's not even a single other person talking about it from what I can tell.
And don't forget the fact that in The Last of Us, the character is Ellie, and in this, the actress is Kaylee. Sorry, that was too much of a stretch. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I genuinely think that's pretty coincidental.
Oh yeah, I mean, but there is something funny to that, like tying it all back. Like
it's funny that you made that connection. But I don't.
Right, 28 days later, zombie stuff.
Yeah,
I could see like how like, okay, if it's mirroring that, it would make it easier to make the leap to The Last of Us. But then we're talking, I mean, like this guy. I mean, like you catch him in the right light, and he's Pedro Pascal. Like I don't understand.
It's the mustache. They don't actually look alike. It's the mustache.
But it was the performance, because he was doing things that reminded me of his SNL performance. Like when he was being funny, I was like, this is. I don't know. It was just really, I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and it was making me laugh in this very.
Meanwhile, wasn't there a thing?
Not funny movie.
I know there was a thing between Pedro Pascal, or is a thing between Pedro Pascal and Oscar Isaac, and they don't look like at all.
No,
but I know that they're like kind of an age, and like came up at the same time, and are in real life actually legitimately like best friends. Basically,
that's awesome.
Like I don't think they were like forever, but they have like become best friends. I remember either you sent it to me or I sent it to you, like that video of like they were doing some press thing of like the two of them together. But I do think there actually was something between. Oh, what the hell is the guy's name? The guy from Better Call Saul, the guy who played the cartel guy. Wasn't
Nacho?
there a? No. The one who was like the Terminator, who Gus gets at the end, who was like part of the family.
One who was like the Terminator.
I can't think of the character's name at all.
That's fine.
He was like a pretty important character.
Oh,
yeah. It was like, how are you not knowing who I'm?
Yes.
Like there was a thing between him and Pedro Pascal, wasn't there? Where like one of them was saying that like people were like confusing them online the time or something like that, because again, like the mustache, they're both like Latino actors, like of like a similar age. Like one of them, I think it's Tony something, isn't it? Wasn't that his name in real life?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up. I know who you're talking about.
Wasn't he like when he started getting famous because of Better Call Saul? Like, wasn't he didn't he make a joke?
Yes.
I think he made a joke about how people confused him for Pedro Pascal, and he was
I know what you're talking about.
Like happy to like ride on his coattails or something like that. It became like a joke between them.
Lalo,
but what's his name in real life?
Tony Dalton.
I knew it was Tony, and I couldn't remember what his last name was.
Yeah. I was gonna try to see if I could find.
And Wagner Maurer also kind of fits into this like Venn diagram we're creating of like these Latino actors of like a similar age. Like they don't actually look alike. You could not possibly confuse any of them. No. But they look just enough alike where some idiot could confuse them.
Yeah. But that's kind of what I meant by like B movie Pedro Pascal, just because I was like, what? Like because in those movies that I'm talking about, they would cast somebody that was just reminiscent enough of the actual people in the movie, where you're like, we see what you're trying to do.
Well, it's literally just that
you're not Pedro.
These guys exist at the same time and are becoming super famous at the same time and are getting all like these big tentpole things, like in a time where like there isn't enough of these.
It's a tale as old as Betamax and VHS.
It's as the nose on Kane's face.
Back to this movie though. So I think it's really cool. I'm going to try to get these character names. So we've got Lee, Kirsten Dunst's character, right? Who is the veteran field reporter or field photographer, right? We have Joel, who's a veteran field writer. And we have Jesse, who is an aspiring photographer.
Yeah.
And she is super green. She has the talent for the photography, but Lee's concern is that like Lee is seeing Jesse in herself like when she was younger, and doesn't want, like it becomes very obvious, like she doesn't want her becoming her. She doesn't want Jesse to become who she is.
Well, not only that, but I think it forced her to look at how improbable her life and career has been, in the sense of like looking at her forced her to like come to terms with the fact that she could have died a million times leading up to this, and more likely than not, that's how it's going to go. And like, she doesn't want to watch this girl die in one of the million stupid ways she could have, and like how improbable it is that she got here.
I think I completely agree. I think it's twofold though. I think there's that aspect of it, and I think that there's.
Oh, I think you're right. I think it's those two things together.
But she could see how far she's come from having a life outside of this, and like she like almost like to the point where she like doesn't remember herself before it all, like before all of the turmoil that she's experienced.
We'll also realize there is nothing else for her other than this at this point.
Right. And I'm gonna stick with these two characters for a minute and go all the way through the movie. But like Jesse is getting hands-on experience in this horror, and the entire like for the first like 2/3 of the movie, Lee is kind of like rolling her eyes at her like I didn't want you here. Like I didn't want you experiencing this. I didn't, like, as it's getting worse and she's throwing up and she's in danger and all the stuff, she's like, it's very much like Lee's walls are up and she is like has an I told you so attitude. Right? All the way through to the point where Sammy dies.
Yeah.
Right? Where I think is it when Sammy dies? I think it's when Sammy dies. And then when they're like, Jesse is out like sitting in like by a lake, all alone, and Lee goes out to meet her. She goes and sits down, and I paused the movie. I was like, we got to rewatch this scene. And the kid was like, well, just rewatch the scene for me for a second. And I rewound it and played it again. The two characters are sitting there. And Jesse's sitting, I think she's sitting with her arms crossed, and Leah's sitting there with her hands like kind of in her lap. And they're talking, and Jesse's cadence, like the way that she delivers the lines, changes very significantly in that scene to the kind of monotone, emotionless, like bulletless delivery that Lee normally gives.
Yeah.
And Lee shows some emotion in that scene. And I was like, holy crap. Like the two of them just traded bodies. Like it's such an incredible scene.
They had their lightning crashes moment, right? Like the song from Live.
Yeah.
Like where like the whole thing is like detailing like the circle of life and like a woman dying in a hospital, a woman giving birth in a hospital. Like and how like there's like this connection point of almost like a transference of like life and consciousness and spirit within that moment. And like that's what that was, right? Like that death of Sammy was that defining moment where it was the one thing too far for Jessie that hardened her into becoming that, and it was the one thing too far that broke Lee.
Yeah, and you see like their trajectories kind of just cross at that moment, and then for the rest of the movie they go further and further as Lee becomes like gets her humanity back.
Yeah.
And Jessie just gets harder and harder and harder to the point of the final sequence with the two of them.
Yeah.
Of Lee dying and Jessie taking pictures of it.
Yeah.
And just like, it's so like in that moment, it's like, there's only one way the rest of this movie can go. Right. It's like, there was foreshadowing in it earlier of like, if they were going to shoot me, would you take pictures or whatever the line is that Jessie delivers. And it's like, I don't know that Lee answers, but the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've done a really good job at this point. Kirsten Dunst's done an incredible job as this character at this point of like, there's no question. Like she's who she is.
Well, think about it. Like you see it in that first scene when the suicide bomber happens. Yeah. She takes a picture of her.
Yep.
I mean, she's not dead, but she takes a picture of her, in that moment is like,
yeah,
she could sense something was important there. Like that needed to, there was a story that needed to be told with that picture there. And like, that's the whole idea is like, what are the stories that need to be told and how do we tell them and how do we memorialize them?
Yeah, man, that scene though, that I was like, whoa. Sometimes you watch a movie and you just get a scene and you feel something. And I was like, that was something. Like, say what you will about the rest of the movie. That scene alone, like I feel like that, if you had Academy Award, like, your sizzle reel for like the best actress in a leading role, like, like that's like the scene. Yeah. And I was just like, holy moly. And then like rolling it back and playing it one more time, I was like, yep, no, 100%, like crushed that scene, giving this 110%. As just, it really blew me away. There's another, we're going to obviously we jump around these things all the time, but going with Joel for a second. Joel's got like this, Joel has this adrenaline junkie aspect to him that Lee doesn't have.
Yeah.
Right? Where like,
you can see there's some scenes where he's getting off on it. Now he's also the one who you can see is the one who gets more fed up with it. She's the stone column with the sea crashing around her, right? Yeah. She doesn't get moved one way or the other. Whereas he rides the highs and crashes with the lows, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it comes back to like how they mentally shield themselves from the horrors that they've experienced. So like Lee, like we said, like she hardened, like she becomes monotone and she shuts herself off from the feeling, and it's like just does the job. Where Joel's coping mechanism is to do that, right? Is to fully be in it, whichever way it's going. Is just to fully be there. Like, and I think that was really interesting. Like, especially like when it leads up to the sequence with Jesse Plemons, who I don't know if the character has a name.
I think it's just like
douchebag one.
It's something soldier. Like,
yeah, but like up to that scene where like Joel is like he's an emotional wreck in the scene, and Lee is like, all right, this is like we die here, right? Like it's like yeah. she's like not gonna let it face her. Like that's what she's done to herself, like to protect herself from it. Where like Joel is just kind of feels it all at like 2x. You know, it's really interesting, like to do this with the characters, like have two people that kind of go through a very similar life experience, and then but experience and present themselves very different ways. And you know, he's excited to get to DC and get this story first, and Lee is like,
which is such a pipe dream
we just have to do what we have to do. Yeah, it was such a pipe, but like leading all the way up to the WF pulling the president out from behind the desk, right? And he goes, wait, he's like, but at this point, like to your point, like he gets emotional, right? And he's like, wait. He's like, I have to get a quote. Like at that, like sequence,
which is insane. Like he's not, you guys, you can't do this. Like he doesn't in any way, shape, or form render an opinion, which was actually was pretty surreal watching the different sequences of this, right? Because like embedded journalists is a real thing. Like go in with an actual, like a regular, like group or squadron or like detachment of the army, like you will, or the Marines, whatever. Like you will literally be out there. They will be shooting people. You'll be writing or taking pictures or whatever.
Yep.
Now, in a war, they like the opposite side will shoot you. Like they will kill you. Like you're over there with those guys. We're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
You know, or you like go in with militia or like special forces or whatever and see like the stuff in the country, like the real shit, like not the front line stuff, like that different, dirtier, less reported stuff, and like that's even more dangerous. And like maybe like they see like the talking like to the people who like, are these people neutral? Are they supporting the opposition? Are they helping this? Are they playing both sides? Whatever, like they interact, they have those interactions on the road, which like was closer to this. But again, you could get killed at any point, and the soldiers are not going to go crazy defending you. Like they're going to tell you, hey, don't do this, don't do that. They're not going to throw themselves in front of you.
Right.
They're not going to drag you along. Like there is no, like there was this surreal aspect of they're at these engagements. Like even that first scene, there's this police presence, there's these protesters, they're going at each other, and there's the journalists who are standing perpendicular to them, and everyone's ignoring them. Like everyone, oh, are you okay over there? Like, you know,
yeah.
And like the same thing during the course of this, it didn't matter whether they were with the Western forces or with like the U.S. forces, I guess we'll call them. They were in no danger.
Mm-hmm.
Like supposedly they were in no danger, right?
Yeah.
We see them following Western forces. We see them following U.S. forces. Neither one of them's like, you were reporting on that side, or you were reporting on this side, or fuck you, until you get the one. By the way, I looked up his name. It is just Soldier. Okay. Just like until you get to the, like, he's the only person who breaks this written or unwritten rule that exists.
Right.
The only time at any point we said it was like in the Capitol they will shoot journalists, which like we hear that, we don't ever really see that. It would have been nice to follow that thread a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we see them following both sides during this conflict. And at no point does anyone ever see like, you betrayed us, or whatever, other than the Plemons character.
Yeah.
And you know what? It as much as it turns into this whole thing of like, where are you from? What do you represent? What do you like? Who are you siding with? He does all of that because they catch him in the middle of a war crime.
Mm-hmm.
Every other thing was people engaging in war, quote unquote, by the rules, right? It's two sides lining up and shooting at each other, and the agreed upon things of we're at war with each other. They're not in danger in those sequences, right? The only thing they're in danger with is because those guys mass killed a whole bunch of people. We don't know what side those people are or aren't on. You're led to believe it was a U.S. forces killing the Western forces, but you don't know that.
Yeah.
And based on the behavior, probably wasn't the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's the only time they're ever actually in danger until the very end.
Yeah. That sequence is intense. But going back to can I like give me a quote? Please don't let them kill me. That'll do.
That was gonna be my intro initially before I decided to do the thing about the countries.
Yeah, nice. But that got me because like in that moment, like you're right though. Like they, especially Lee and especially Sammy, never a hint of preference.
No, everything they talked about is totally dispassionately like these are things that are happening. They're important things that are happening. We want to document those things.
Yeah, but
never express an opinion or a side or a care.
Joel shows cracks here and there. And then especially in that moment when he says that'll do, it's a snarky, like, it's like, all right, like, and he writes it down. And like you could tell he has an opinion. He doesn't, you don't quite know fully like where he stands or really where anybody stands, because you don't really know what's going on, which is, again, intentional. But like, I think that was interesting, is like, I think it shows a little bit of a crack in the, like, as much as they are beating the drum of we just have to point and shoot and show people things, you are a human being with biases. Yeah. And I think that they do a good job of, like, holding that line of like, nope, we have no, like, we're just showing you what it is. But like, there's moments for Joel where he and I think that's intentional. It's like, of showing like there's little cracks. Like, he could still do it like 90%, but like, even that is pretty impressive. Yeah. Right. To be able to be 90% just objective, just like, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm reading. But like, in writing and I think it also shows kind of the complication between writing a thing that happened and taking a picture of it. Yeah. Like, I think it's a little bit easier for, like, I don't think, like, Lee will just take a picture of everything that's happening, right? She'll take a picture of the thing, right? She might have feelings about it, but she still took the picture of the thing. And yeah, you can get into art and how, like, maybe framing it in certain ways will make it be like appealing or unappealing or whatever. But I feel like Lee, to that point, Lee would be like a 99% objective in like what she's reporting. Well, where Joel's kind of cracks a little bit, which is okay, because like it's human, and I liked that, how that came through in that sequence.
Well, think about the difference between writing and let's call it photography, but like representing a visual image, right? Mm-hmm. When you're writing a thing, and if whether you think it's fully objective or not, you write it, and then you go back and you edit it, and you re-clarify, and you sand off the edges here, or you sharpen a point there. And it's like, oh, I'm not expressing a direct opinion, but you're shaping every part of it to the point where at some point an agenda is coming through, whether you meant it to or not. Versus you're taking these pictures. There's a pass-fail element to the editing, right? I'm going to present this picture. I will not present this picture. Yeah. But once you've decided I'm presenting this picture, you may think when you took that picture, this represents something, but someone else may see it as something else, right? It becomes, again, a Rorschach test. So there is this gray area as to whether or not you're shaping this, whether or not you're expressing opinion. You may put out a picture saying like, oh, this was disgusting because X, and that's what you think. But when you put that picture out there, someone else may see it and think Y. Right. Versus writing about a thing that, oh, I think this is a set of facts that I've presented to you, but I've edited and I've clarified and I've provided context, or I've omitted context, and whether I chose to or not, like overtly, there is a set of editing and bias that infiltrates these words, and the chance of you, the reader, seeing what I was feeling when I wrote this is a much higher chance than just looking at that picture. Mm-hmm. I would think. Yeah. Yeah. I guess it would depend on the writing. So if you have the temperament to be very bullet listy with like, it's like 4 soldiers walked through this door and pulled this person out from under a desk and shot him, right? Like, these are the things that happen, right? Yeah. But if you embellish it at all, if you like, against all odds, like, like whatever, then it becomes, well, think about it. If you wrote, these 4 soldiers grabbed President whatever, dragged him out and shot him, that's pretty bland. It's factual. Yeah. Totally factual. Very bland. Right. But if you write, these 4 Western Forces soldiers killed their way through the streets, stormed into the Oval Office, yeah. Killed a negotiator, dragged President whatever, kicking and screaming from behind the desk. He pleaded for his life, and they executed him without a trial. Yeah. That was also totally factual. but you've introduced
but colorful.
you've introduced context and bias to that. And everything I said there was entirely factual.
Right.
And it's much more interesting and engaging.
Sure. But
it also has opinion in there.
Yeah. It's interesting. We never really do get a sample of Joel's writing.
No.
Right. That would have been, and I do think that's probably intentional because I think the story that's being told here is trying to paint them as objective, like just going through reporting on what's happening. And it would be very hard to give you a sample of one of his stories and prove that based on what we just said here, right?
I would assume that Garland identified the same thing I just did.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
As soon as you start getting him talking, you're going to introduce his opinion and bias.
100%.
And that wasn't the point of this.
Yeah. Oh, man. So I think I mentioned it in that sequence of like his kind of scoff and his like, it's like, yeah, that'll do. Like Joel does provide like any of the moments of like levity and comic relief. He gets to be that, like that avenue. But
he's kind of like the comedian to an extent, right?
Yeah. But one of my favorite, like I love, like there's like growing intensity in so many sequences, and I love the super intense sequence where there's the guy in the house with a sniper rifle, and there's the two guys on the ground with sniper rifles. Hey, what's going on here? You see that house? Yeah, they're trying to kill us, and we're trying to kill them. It's like, and he starts asking more questions, and he goes, "Hey, kid, what's going on?" She like they're trying to kill you. She gets it.
After he's asked like the fifth question, he's like, "You really are fucking stupid, aren't you?"
I want to see that whole sequence was that was a nice palate cleanser. As like it's still dark and terrible, right? Yeah. But it was a nice little palate cleanser to like everything else that's going on. I wanted to see if I could pull up the actual quote from that sequence because it was pretty funny.
Well, I can tell you, I already edited one quote. So,
what was it? I
said I already edited one quote.
What did you edit?
I don't think he said it as nicely as "Are you stupid?" I'm pretty sure he said something else.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's better. Oh yeah, he does. Oh, I get it. You're effing R. Yep. It's interesting. So, like, we talk about how we don't really know we don't know what's going on, right? We just know that there's two forces within
possibly
the same
a
country.
Third. There was
actually, there's four. I think from something that I read something after the fact. There's the Western forces.
Yeah.
There's the whatever U.S. government. Mm-hmm. There's something in the southeast and something in the northeast that are kind of on the fence-ish.
Well, I remember them specifically talking about quashing like the Florida insurrection.
Yeah.
But I don't remember them saying anything about the north.
I don't remember them saying anything either, but I just remember I was curious if there was more to it.
It does make sense because the movie opens in New York City and there is unrest in New York City.
Right.
So there is something, but they don't really
they don't get into it.
What is specifically going on there.
No. But we don't know what like sides are standing for, what they're actually fighting for. We do know that there's unrest,
which again is intentional.
But we get pockets of, well, regardless of what's going on, the particular execution of this sequence feels bad, and the particular execution of this sequence feels bad. For example, the Jesse Plemons thing. This left side, right side, north side, south side.
War crime.
Bad.
War crime.
This is bad.
War crime is bad.
These are bad things that are happening here. Yeah. Bad. And then the guys being like tortured in the, I don't even know, what was it, a car wash?
It was a car wash, yeah.
It was a car wash. I was like, I don't know what they did. I don't know what you guys did. Holding them hanging there, like kind of beaten and bleeding out.
Oh, I thought they said the whole thing.
What did they do?
They tried to rob them.
Oh,
I think that was I mean, it's still wrong to respond in the way they did, but at least like understandable.
Okay. That sequence too of like, let's set the stage. We'll give you 300 for half a tank of gas, full, what is it, canister of gas, Whatever. 300.
And
That's going to get you a
sandwiches.
couple sandwiches. That'll get you a ham and cheese sandwich. He's like 300 Canadian. It's like, now you're talking. I'm like, what are we talking about? I don't even know what's going on.
Well, yeah, the whole point is that the Canada at this moment in time in this movie is still functional.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. I just like I like the reveal of that was like just like it was like goodness gracious, what a twist! Like that was just,
but like that is a good bit of storytelling. A 90-second conversation tells you how terrible. Like this isn't just there's things going on. It's like no, we're in full blown collapse of this nation. Like,
the dollar has hella collapsed.
There is no winning or losing at this point, right? Like no matter what happens, it's going to take a decade for anything to be back to some semblance of normalcy after this. Yeah. If it ever does.
Well, that's something that would say like the collapse. There's like just kind of going back to this reporter aspect of it. Like historically, there have been nations that have collapsed and there have been reporters that tell the story. And it's kind of interesting, like of the lens of telling that story in the nation that you live in. like
well, that's what I said. We've got a million stories about things over there. Mm-hmm. That can't happen here.
Right.
Until it does.
Until it does.
And maybe it never does. I mean, I sure should hope it never does, but
yeah. Also, hang on. Can we get a shout out for my guy Sammy, who just runs the fuck over Jesse Plemons?
It needed to be done.
It was great when he did it. I'm not quite sure the mechanics of the bullet in his body.
I was going to say something at some point. Because, like, that's absolutely a trope where, like, a heroic getaway driver drives everyone away and then, like, is revealed to be shot later. But, like, they've always been driving away from them. And it's like, I feel like someone in the backseat could have got shot.
Sure.
Not the guy in the driver's seat, probably. No. With the entire truck and a person between him and the people shooting. But it's a movie.
Yeah, it is that. It is that.
I do think there's an aspect of, I think, for as much as Lee and Sammy butt heads, I think part of it is Lee knows that if things keep going the way they are, she'll be him one day.
Yeah.
Like, I thought her and Sammy were much more, like, similar people ultimately. Or, like, people with similar worldviews than, like, he was with Joel. And so I think that's part of why they butted heads so much.
Sure.
And so I think there was an aspect of also...
We're not too different, you and I.
Well, there's that, and also the fact that he did get old doing this thing, and she's already grappling with how improbable it was for her to get here. Mm-hmm. And then to see him is like, well, maybe there is an invincibility aspect to what we're doing.
Right.
And then to see him die.
Yeah.
Shattered what tenuous, like, grasp she had on everything's fine. It's fine here.
Yeah. We're all fine. How are you?
And then when he dies, it's like, it really, truly finally made her come to terms with the fact that it is insane after everything she's seen and done that she's still here.
Yeah.
And it was even more insane that he was still there. Yeah. And it was even less likely that Jesse would ever get there after everything they saw. And I think that's right. Like, we've seen war stories of the soldier who becomes numb and becomes the killing machine. And then eventually it catches up and they just break. Right. Yep. Like that, we were just talking about it last week, I think, in reference to, again, back to the very beginning of our show, Hacksaw Ridge. Papa Doss.
Yeah.
He is a broken man because he went through war and survived it. And he had to, in order to get to the point of surviving that horrible war, he had to become numb to what he was going through. And eventually, no matter how long you push it down and push it away, when you're totally, like, numb to that, eventually you're going to hit the point of no return. And something you will see or do will break you, and there's just no coming back from that.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we've seen that from a non-combatant in that way, right? Like, we watched a person go through all of those things. Like, you've seen it in other fields. You've seen it in medical fields. There's been medical dramas where, like, that's good. Like, I forgot. Did you ever end up finishing Scrubs?
No, I want to, but I haven't.
How far, more or less, did you get into it? You know,
I don't remember. 4 or 5 seasons.
So I believe it's the 5th season. It's in my opinion probably the best episode, and it's a 2 or 3 part arc within the show. Dr. Cox, John C. McGinley's character, is the grizzled veteran. He's JD's mentor. He's, to an extent, the mentor of all of the class of Turk, JD, and Elliot, the 3 who come in as new doctors at the beginning of the show. He's seen everything. He's done everything. Nothing ever gets him down. I mean, yeah, he's got a bad temper, but like he just keeps going, keeps doing. There's an episode where they make a call. Everything looks like it's going right. They get a bunch of organ transplants for people who are like on the brink of death waiting for organs. And because they made this call, all of those patients die.
Oh, man.
And he just breaks. He has a full-blown meltdown as the last one's dying, trying to bring them back, like revive them. And he walks out, and the next episode, he's drunk on the job.
Oh, wow.
And they send him home. Like, they're like, like, obviously you can't let someone, but they're like they understand, like, this is not something he'd done before. He probably is an alcoholic, but not.
Yeah. Never in the,
And
as much of an asshole as he can be, he is like,
he's a really good doctor. He is an asshole, but he's a really good doctor who actually cares. And that is the crux of it. There is the whole episode is every one of them is taking turns, taking shifts, staying with him at home.
Mm-hmm.
And JD won't go do it. And Cox is he's mute. He's just sitting on his couch the whole episode for days. Yeah. Just sitting totally mute, just drinking. Or actually, I don't even know if he's actually drinking. He's just sitting there like catatonic.
Yeah. And
JD finally shows up and he gives this whole speech where he says, I thought I was mad about what you like did after, like talking about like showing up drunk and all that. And he goes like, that wasn't it. I was scared because I didn't know someone like you could still be here doing this long and care that much. And to see that like come about like and affect you this way, like he's like, that's who I want to be. I want to still care that much after all that time. And to see you not be able to get off the mat essentially, it scared me.
Oh, I have to go back to the show.
And he like it's got a great how it diffuses in the scene because JD pours a scotch for both of them. JD takes a sip, and Cox finally says his first words. He goes, "You don't drink scotch," and JD spits it back into the glass.
Oh, it's wonderful. That show is so good. The Colin Hay episode sticks with me ever since you told me about it. I got to that one.
But I thought of it in some ways like with this, where it's like, just watching that, like to be so hardened in this, like we've never seen someone in this field go through something like that.
I want to talk about one funny mechanic that was used. I thought about it after the fact. So Tony and I don't remember the other guy's name. The 2 other reporters that are following them at a rapid pace where they think they're getting chased and they're like really concerned at one point.
That whole sequence is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. I did find out that, and in thinking about it, the only reason they did that was so that they could separate Jesse from them and do the next scene. It's like how like the story the movie moves. It doesn't. There's no dips. It's like really well. It's well executed. It's very tight. It gets through the whole thing. I never felt like bored or that it took an extra step where it shouldn't have. Like I think it's like very well paced. In order to do that, though, they had to have this to give a plausible reason why Jesse, who is with them, is not with them to execute the rest of the sequence and give them a reason to get involved.
Execute the rest of the sequence, really?
I'm sorry. They did this ridiculous like car jump while it's moving. I was like, in that scene, I was like, this feels disconnected from the rest of the movie. And it was the only real crack I feel like that I felt. But
it is a little dissonant, but it's also, we talked about the idea of palate cleansers and like that is meant to be a moment of levity before we're about to go to the darkest shit you can imagine.
Yeah. Keep going back to this sequence, dumping the bodies in the hole. Jesse Plemons with the rose-colored glasses.
Mm-hmm.
The guy has creepy on lock. Creepy Todd, creepy soldier, creepy neighbor.
Creepy neighbor from Game Night.
Yeah, like he's very good at the creepy guy.
Which is funny because his first like real role was on Friday Night Lights, and he just plays the regular best friend.
I can't even imagine it.
Although him and his girlfriend do murder someone and then dump him in a river.
Oh, great. And then his acting career, he was like, I kind of liked that. And then he just took on that persona for the rest of it. To be
fair, that guy was stalking and trying to rape his girlfriend.
What was the name? What show?
Friday Night Lights.
Okay. That's another one that I feel like I have to watch.
It's very of its time.
Mm-hmm.
It's soap opera-y.
Sure.
But it is a good, enjoyable watch. Yeah. It also launched a bunch of careers.
I mean, I watched Arrow and Flash. I've watched my fair share of soap operas.
Yeah.
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 Well,
it launched a lot of careers.
Yeah. I know. I definitely have seen the cast list at one point and been like, huh.
I mean, maybe it's not fair to say it launched Kyle Chandler's career, but it does feel like he got much more famous after that.
Sure.
Considering he was like a full-blown adult at that point. But Taylor Kitsch, the one from John Wick, the first one, I'm totally forgetting her name. The one who attacks him in the hotel, like breaks the rule. Like that. I'm totally forgetting her name. Minka Kelly, Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan. The Wire, man.
Yeah.
That one stuck with me.
I mean, his role in The Wire was before that, but like he's in like half a season. So
yeah. Wow. Anyway, Civil War. I think it was a well executed film.
Yeah.
It was just like I said, didn't know what I was getting into going in.
I don't think it's his best. I think maybe in some ways it's his most polished. I still think his best movie is probably Ex Machina. It's also a wildly different type of movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that you said maybe his most. I do think it is the most polished movie. Like,
I like the swing that he took with Annihilation.
Sure,
I think there's some really cool things in that.
Yeah,
I think that was interesting adapting that because I remember talking about it on the show. I read those books.
Yep.
He made like wild license with that. I really liked what he did with the movie, but like it was interesting, like trying to figure out what did he take from on the page to create that?
Yeah,
exactly. I think he is a phenomenal writer. I think he's a good director.
Yeah,
and you could make an argument like the best-ish movie is like 28 Days Later. He wrote that. He did not direct that. Like Danny Boyle directed that. I even though his shit is so dark, I love his work.
Yeah,
I mean, like Debs, we loved that show.
Yeah, I'm torn on like which of my favorite thing of his is like a neck and neck between Ex Machina and Deus.
I don't have big complaints about this movie. It just feels like there's a couple of things that are a touch heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm.
And I get why you go down that road because you're like, these are important things, and I don't want the subtlety and subtext to be lost. I want you to fucking look at it.
Yep.
Like, in some ways, there's a little bit of a parallel between this and what we were talking about earlier with Sorkin. Like, where sometimes what's more important to me as an artist with a thing to say is what's more important to do the most artistically incredible thing about something that I'm super passionate about that people are going to miss, or is it more important that this thing I'm so passionate about, people need to see it and understand it, and so I'm going to lose some of the artistic subtlety to bash you over the head with it. Like, I think there are choices that need to be made with this sort of project. I think he made those choices, right? There are moments where he lets the art win, and there's moments where he lets the message win.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make for a touch uneven experience at times.
Sure.
Like, it's not to say it's bad. It's just what keeps it from being... Like, I thought that the message that he had to send in Ex Machina, I thought he let the art win in that.
Right.
And that's why I think it's overall the better movie.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one had the quote-unquote better or more well-articulated message.
Sure. I can't stop thinking about Ex Machina right now, ever since he started talking.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. That movie's just so goddamn good. It's so uncomfortable, but it's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, the only crack, I feel like, I don't know, actually this might have come from Joel too, but as far as like getting like a little bit of bias in there, but like we didn't know, like we don't when I say quite, we don't know at all like what is going on with the Western forces and the US and maybe other factions, right? We have no idea where anybody stands on anything. The only piece that they fed was that the president is in his third term, seemingly because he refused to leave. That was like a line that I actually thought was interesting that they disclosed that piece of information because like I feel like in order to do this story well, I feel like he probably has on paper what's going on, like to a degree. Maybe no real depth to it, but just like some lines,
yeah,
right. But that little crack showed, and I thought it was interesting to say it. Like it didn't need to be said, but they said it.
It depends on what you're trying to. It depends on what you're trying to convey there. I would
the only thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, we're probably on the same page on what this assumption is going to be.
Well, I would assume you've made the choice. We're not going to draw party lines here. We're not going to say what's quote unquote right or wrong from a political standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would cause a substantial portion of this country to rebel and fight?
Right.
That is a feasible thing that we don't have to go into detail on. And so that thing could be as simple as we had a full 2-term president, and then that person decided that they're just going to continue to be president.
Right.
And some of the country's okay with that, and some of the country isn't.
Yeah.
It's a little wonky, but it does
and I'm
work.
sure that there would have been nuance to the execution of that, right? Of like, oh, well, we are at war, and at wartime, we don't want to change whatever. Like, they probably could have been like, so, but like that doesn't matter. The point is, and we are on the same page there, because what my assumption was that given nothing else, you would maybe have an internal assumption, like internally assume that the U.S. like the actual infrastructure that is there, and the president is meant to be the good guys, just like meant to be like the right, like the correct side of whatever's going on. But it's like, we're trying to very specifically say you can't decide because there's nothing to decide. That's not what the story is about. So we have to just like pose a little doubt just to make it very clear that there's you don't know what's going on.
Or it could be that there was some major wedge issue 6 or 7 years into his presidency, and things are getting out of hand, and so the president starts leveraging, like, say, certain governors to quash the unrest by, like, activating the National Guard, and then those states rebel at that notion, and the push-pull within those states, say, within the states of Florida and California and Texas, the 3 biggest states, right, by population, that each of those states can't be quashed by the time the election was supposed to come. And so the federal government decides, well, until these 3 states get put back into a state of homeostasis, we're going to hold off on having an election.
Sure.
And then we've now gotten a couple of years past when an election is supposed to be. And now this situation is looking more than a little fucked up. And so these states decide, let's stop fighting internally. We need to be looking back at the federal government. And we need to go blank slate before we have the conversation about having an election.
Right.
Which, like, that is even probably more feasible than the first scenario I put up.
Sure.
still, again, like kind of tenuous or whatever, but like at least there's it's not about party lines, it's about like these like ideas of like governance in general, like in the macro.
Yeah. I just thought it was I mean, I think it helps and it plays well in intentionally making sure that like there's not just a blurry line, but like no line, you can't really like understand what's going on because they're withholding it. It was just it was interesting in a story where they tell you nothing, right? They tell you nothing about either side except for this one little piece of information that they threw out, which I think is intentional, like with the intent of blurring the line, like is telling you that so that you could maybe grasp that you're not supposed to be picking a side right now. You're supposed to be watching the story unfold. And
it's one of those situations where maybe its greatest strength is its greatest weakness, right? Where by trying to be so bipartisan or like so anti-partisan, it unravels the plot itself in the sense of like, well, this doesn't make sense. Why is he still in office? Like, like there's no way to answer that question sufficiently without risking ending that neutrality.
Right.
You know, so it is what it is. Like, again, it's not perfect, but I understand the choices that they made. I think they were probably the right choices. I don't have a better solution to try to tell this story without intentionally pissing off quote unquote one side or the other.
Exactly. I'm not mad about it.
Also, it's a British filmmaker making this movie, which is its own interesting thing. There's a level of looking from the outside in that sometimes can be helpful. And then there's also people who, you know, understandably could push back on the, well, why are you like sticking your nose in American situations? Like, you know, like there's an argument to be had on that issue as well. So, you know, it's not going to be perfect. I get why people just had no interest in. I even get the people who like that little town they run into don't want to get involved one way or the other, and like people who didn't want to get involved with this movie because like, oh well, like we don't need to be talking about Civil War. Things are already an issue in this country. Like we need to be talking about that. And it's like, I hear you. If you just watched the movie, you'd understand like that's not really what it's about. Again, it's about we as the collective American evaluating our roles within this country as citizens and what we do and don't do and what we allow and don't allow, like from a macro perspective, which it's a really tough conversation to have.
Alex, you've done it again.
You certainly did something.
You keep making movies. You seem like you're making them for me, and I appreciate it.
We still have not in any way, shape, or form talked about what the hell was that movie called? Men? Was it Men?
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
Neither have I. That's what.
Yeah, so we'll add it to the list. Let's make it happen
somewhere. I wanted to bring back a full circle moment with this movie. We talked about it after we talked through devs on this show. That they all talked about wanting to do another project together, and then they talked about doing another show. They scrapped that show. But if I remember correctly, what he talked about was kind of sort of what this was supposed to be. But he made Men and then came back and did this. The pandemic was part of that. I love that they almost all of them came back together and did all this, even though some of them were only in the movie for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick Offerman's not in this movie very long.
No.
Alison Pill was not in this movie at all. Unfortunate. I was glad that basically the whole rest of the cast of that show was, even for 2 seconds. I actually didn't even recognize them, but the sniper and the spotter were the two guys from the show, Jin Ha and was it Carl something? I forget his name. Also, I think it's funny considering there's like a love triangle aspect in that show that the two of them are literally like hugging for however many hours as he's like, laying on his back, spotting for him as like a little too close for comfort. After all, I do think there's a funny meta to that. That's great. You know, we got Tsunoya Mizuna as the Western Forces journalist at the end. That was cool. She got a couple of scenes. I was a little worried. I thought she was just going to get that one scene at the camp. It was cool seeing her during the final push to the White House.
Yep.
What's his name? Stephen McKinley Henderson I think he's great. He was also in the newsroom, like Allison Pill, which is interesting. Also in Devs. I don't know. I think he's a really good actor. I like him. He's great in his role. He's a character actor. He just needs to be this little. He's that extra bit of spice that brings the dish to being that delicious. He's not the steak. Yeah. He's just that little bit of pepper you need to sprinkle in there and spice it up. I thought he was really good in this. He had, I think, my favorite line in the movie. I mentioned it. My initial thought for the intro was this one line. I was like, too dark, totally contextless. If this is someone's first episode listening to this show, it's gonna be like, what the fuck are they talking about? But that scene that they have in the hotel in New York City, when they're talking about, like, they're kind of laying, like, they're framing the debate, talking about, like, this is like supposed to be some world building, some character moment for us, like, as we're getting to know these people who we're going to spend the next hour and a half with, and they're talking about, like, okay, like, you can't interview the president. The whole thing you want to do is a pipe dream. It's ridiculous. You're going to get killed. You shouldn't even do this. Maybe you'll do this. You're going to do this. Can I come along while we do this? And Joel talks about wanting to just, like, get one question with the president, whatever. Like, I got to get a question with him. And Stephen Kinley, Sammy says, just be sure to get the words out before the piano wire gets too tight. Yeah, he's simulating him getting garroted in the fucking Oval Office. It's such a great line. Yeah. And his delivery is great. I love his delivery. There's something about his cadence when he talks that I find really interesting and engaging. And
yeah,
I love that.
I agree.
Almost all of them got back together. Obviously, Jessie, she was a smallish, medium-ish role in Devs too, and it's cool to see. She's been in a handful of things now, and she's an interesting actress. I'll be, not to paraphrase Palpatine too much, but I'm very interested in seeing where her career goes. I'll be looking on with great interest.
Fair enough. That was a nice closing rundown.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for this week's episode of Flix and the Six. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have a movie for us to review or nuggets for us to discuss, you can send those requests to flixandthesix@thespintune.com. Tune in next week for more movie and beer goodness. Until then, I'm Anthony Costanzo.
And our next episode will be The Fall Guy.
Thanks for coming out.